please.
Morris.
Yes.
Edwards. Yes. Woods.
Present.
Lee.
Here.
Cottle.
Here.
Costello.
Present. All right. Start out with our information regarding, I guess we'll first start with Chick-fil-A.
Thank you, Mayor. I will go up to the podium. I'm a close mic talker, apparently, so this keeps me honest. Two public hearings for you next week. First will be Chick-fil-A. This is a new restaurant facility to be located next to the Fauquier Bank. 3 applications that are before you. The first would be a special use permit for a fast food restaurant with drive-through. We've gotten several questions about the stacking lanes, given the experience that Chick-fil-A has had in Gainesville. This will accommodate dual drive lanes up to 19 vehicles. It will also allow for additional stacking internal to the site. They did coordinate with the VDOT project, the interchange project, to make sure traffic circulation will be adequate. And so Holly and I have completed our reviews of those applications. There are some minor amendments to the permit and the site plan application that we expect to have in by next week. Next is zoning text amendments. We previously had a limitation or had a maximum on the number of stacking lanes you could have, which seems counterintuitive to a drive-through type of facility. So they're asking to remove that maximum required and instead turn it into a minimum requirement for stacking spaces for a drive-through window. They're also asking to modify some of the sign standards for the B2 zoning district. They are somewhat similar to the new ordinance standards that we're bringing forward to you in the next month or so, but because of the timing, they wanted to go first, and they've asked to increase the signage. What that means is they get a larger Chick-fil-A letter sign on the front of the building, is essentially what they're asking for. Next is the final site plan amendment. The whole Coral Center is controlled under one site plan. They had to make some amendments to the landscaping, lighting, a little bit with the stormwater management, and so those changes are captured in the final site plan amendment. One point of note is that that center was originally planned for 42,000 square feet of commercial space. With the Chick-fil-A, this will drop it down to about 30,000 square feet. So you're losing about 12,000 or so square feet with this new use being put on the site. And we mentioned in there the number of parking spaces will be reduced by. So in terms of certificate of appropriateness, they've already gotten the review of the architectural drawings by the ARB. They will require a separate certificate for the signage once the ZTA is approved. So I've included draft motions both for the Planning Commission and for the Council in the packet. Be happy to answer any questions.
So obviously this is a joint public hearing.
Yes, sir.
If anybody wants to see the certificates of appropriateness that were approved, I have a copy right here. You all can look at them from the ARB.
And there is some excerpts from the special use permit application that shows some of the layout in the plan set.
Councilman Woods.
The SUP, is that on any renewal basis, or is it just until further action is taken?
There will be no requirement for an annual renewal. That will stay indefinitely.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I noticed in Joe's report, Joe Barbosi, he talked about having to do some additional review of Chick-fil-A. Do you know what that entails and how long that will take? So we can
Those are for the construction plans,
Okay.
and I would not know as much. He may have had some code comments. We're trying to accelerate construction. They went ahead. Usually the order of operation is get your SUP approved, your site plan, then submit your construction plans, but given the timing, they're moving that concurrently. So.
Sir? Yes. Question concerning item C. With regard to the sign, the sign shall occupy a maximum sign area not taller than scratch 18. No, it's 48 inches. How do you think this amendment is going to affect other local town businesses if they want to maybe apply for changes concerning their ordinances? Do you foresee that future tenants or future businesses may piggyback on this to say, well, you change it for Chick-fil-A? So
That was my earlier point, Councilman Morris, is that the new sign ordinance that we're putting forward has a similar or close to a similar standard here. So hopefully they wouldn't, if someone wanted to have similar signage, they could do that.
So this won't come back and bite us?
I hope not. I don't expect it. Never can say never. But I will I will make sure I can say that. I say it confidently now, but we'll make sure again that it matches what we're proposing with the new sign ordinance prior to the hearing. So,
How about the next line, continuing in the same sentence, not longer than 40% of the tenant's unit width? Is that consistent with the proposed new changes for our signage amendment?
some new sign categories will measure the signs based on unit width. Others will just give a standard sign area. It'll be situation specific. So,
Okay.
did that answer your question? I didn't mean to sound ambiguous. It's the new ordinance divides the sign types differently. So some units, some types, either wall signs or other types of signs will be based on the unit width. Others will just have a standard sign.
It does. Well, it did. It's just that the sign ordinance has been needing updating for a while. And now that we're moving forward with doing it, here we have a new tenant. And we want to ensure that, as we are making approvals for these that you and Holly have recommended in pushing forward, we're not making amendments that's going to hurt us as we put those ordinances in place.
Appreciate it. My concern was not to, on day one, have this be a non-conforming use. In other words, you adopt this new standard, then we immediately adopt a new sign ordinance, and now Chick-fil-A is not left with options. That's kind of the situation right now we have with Sheetz. That pylon sign out there is a non-conforming sign.
Sheetz is going to want a larger sign.
They've actually, when they step up, they're actually dropping their height and their square footage, believe it or not. So we are sensitive to that, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sheetz brought their cadre of folks here tonight, represented by Alan Stevens from Sheetz. This is a replacement facility for the current gas station that's there. Multiple applications to make this work. One question that may come up is why so many exceptions? Well, as you know, we're getting ready to look at revamping our zoning ordinance, and we hope to correct a lot of these design standards that are in conflict with what the market is trying to do today. So that being said, first is a special use permit to allow a service station in the I-1 district. Because it's a replacement facility, they're having to go through the newer ordinance and the requirement for the SUP. The project will be phased. The first phase is to build a new building, the new convenience store behind the existing facility. Once that's done, demo the front building, and then they'll move to building the new canopy facility. Let the western side, right now it's kind of in a T formation for the pumps. They'll continue to operate some of the pumps on the west side. All the pumps are going to be reoriented toward Washington Street. So the last thing to go will be the handover of the different fuel pumps. Right now there's 18 fuel stations. They're proposing 20 fuel stations. The town attorney mentioned earlier wanting to do some follow-up, which makes sense with the police department, to make sure we do get calls occasionally to the Sheetz for people after a long holiday are anxious to get their gas and go. I'll just say it that way. So this configuration does some better traffic circulation. I'd originally talked with Roop about this, but I forgot, and thank you for bringing it up, that I needed to follow up with the new chief to make sure he's comfortable with the traffic circulation that's there. But it allows more exits, allows for better traffic circulation through the site, so I do believe it's a better plan. The second is for a quick service food store. This is the part of the facility that sells the food, or the made-to-order. There's a convenience store element, then there's the made-to-order restaurant side that this will accommodate. They've also asked for a comprehensive sign package, which is illustrated in your packet. This addresses all service stations. Right now, we don't have a service station sign or sign standard, and so this establishes that standard. Next, they're asking for 3 zoning text amendments. First, to remove the annual renewal. Councilman Woods, you have brought that up. There's a standard that they had to renew it annually. We're getting rid of that. It's difficult to operate a hard skate building on an annual basis when you're having to constantly renew it. Next is to permit quick service food stores as an accessory use to the service station. Next, to create a sign category within our sign regulations to allow a comprehensive sign package, and amend definitions to accommodate the uses that they are requesting. Last has to do with a landscaping waiver. As part of their site plan, There's a utility line that runs between McDonald's and Sheets. We have a requirement for landscaping, canopy trees and shrubs. Because of the overhead utilities, they can't get in some of those trees. So they're reducing the number of trees, but offsetting it by increasing their shrubs within there. So those 6 or 5 elements are the totality of what they're wanting to do with the site. This is a preliminary site plan, unlike Chick-fil-A. So we will bring back to you the final site plan once we get through this exercise. So at that time, VDOT and the Sanitation Authority will take a look at the final plan. Part of the reason why Sheets has been delayed in submitting its approval or submitting its plans has been to coordinate with the interchange project. And so this does accommodate some of the most recent engineering plans for that facility. Similar to Chick-fil-A, they've already gotten their certificate of appropriateness for the architecture. They will be doing some amendments to the signage following the approval, should the council do so. Similar to Chick-fil-A, we've drafted motions for the Planning Commission and also the Town Council for next Monday's public hearing.
Okay. Tanks, are they having to relocate those or keeping the existing?
I'm going to have their engineer come up and walk you through all that.
Okay, all right.
We'll just have you use that. I apparently can't get undressed fast enough.
So yes, the tanks will be new tanks. The existing underground tanks are out towards Washington Street, and they will move around to the end of the new canopy, which is more on the 15 side. So there will be new tanks. That'll be in the last phase when we remove the existing gas altogether and start the new tanks.
Could you introduce yourself?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
I'm John Maxwell with Sheets. I'm sorry, engineering permits.
Gotcha, okay, all right.
Couple
Councilman West.
questions, please. Will there be an anticipated close-in between transition?
Uh,
Are you looking at, have you looked at the time frame and between the old building and the new building?
Yes,
And commissioning the new pumps, do you anticipate an extended closing period?
Not for the store, because they, I think, like I said, the first phase will be to build the store, the new store behind the existing one. And so the store that's out there today will continue to operate during that 16-month period when the new store is built. And then there will be a phase where that new store will open, that's behind it, and will continue to use the access and route around the demo of the existing building today. And so there will always be a store open. There will be a period of time when the gas will be out of commission for a short period of time while that's phased. So, and these new tanks, the good part is we can install the new tanks in their new location while we're still operating the old, because they're in separate locations.
Okay. You said you're right now you have 18 pump stations.
Yes.
And at the end of this, you will have 20?
20.
I thought we were close to 1.5, because I thought we were almost doubling the amount of pumps.
16
today,
today
20.
and 20. So there's 4 more fueling positions with the new plan.
And one correction was 15 weeks. I think you had said 15 months. Alan was saying 15 weeks. 15 weeks? Yeah. 15
Sorry.
months.
Not that. Yeah, made out. It's weeks, yeah.
15 weeks from beginning to end.
For the to open the new store. And there's additional time for the other 2 phases, but the new store will be up and operating in 16 weeks.
I have 2 more, and my frugal nature is coming out. The air station, is it going to be coin operated or free as in most other, or
Yes.
some other? It will be free?
It's free, yeah.
Good. And this,
When it's operating.
when it's working. And is this 129 guaranteed?
Gas price on opening day?
Yeah, opening day, yeah. Maybe opening day.
Maybe, you never know.
Never know.
You got to get your Sheets card. It's 3 cents off every day.
Jennifer, just make sure that was recorded. Thank you, sir.
Engineering design, do you do the, like extended hoses to then serve both sides of the car? Like some, in other words, to get the flow? Do you all do that or no? No.
No, these will be our
He's
standard.
saying yes and
Yeah,
he's
I
saying
know.
no.
They serve both.
Each pump will be 10 pumps.
Right.
You can serve 2 cars simultaneously.
Alan, can you come up?
Right, but with the actual hose length, you can, a lot of times the congestion at Sheets is because you're having to go to which side your gas tank's on, whereas some facilities actually have the extended hoses that allow you to pump to your
Never seen that.
Costco.
Really?
Costco, BJ's.
Costco and BJ's have it.
Yeah, and that just helps with efficiency. I mean, it's like, I didn't know if you're, yeah, it has an extreme too, but it just allows you to pull the hose to the other side. It's like an extension.
It's not something that we
I don't think
Yeah,
I think they'll look into it.
yeah, you'll look into it, yeah.
it's a good idea.
And
More
it's-
people in and
It makes
out.
it more efficient. If you just sit and watch the flow and people, it's like, yeah,
And then you have some people that don't remember what side it's on.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it just happens more than I do the same thing. I have 2 different cars with 2 different sides. But
Right.
I'll have to see that, 'cause
Yeah.
I honestly have never seen that before.
There you go. Okay. Other questions? Sure.
Anticipating approval next week, just anticipating that everything goes well on Monday in the public hearing. So what's your timeline? And when do you think you could start at the earliest, and when do we think it'll be finished?
Well, our final site plan would be.
Yeah, if you could come up to the microphone. We just can't hear you there.
Okay.
Okay, that's all right.
Question, there's still a final site plan that we need to go through.
Right, and that time period, I'm uncertain the process for the final site plan approval. I'm speaking in
Take,
Latin on that.
take several months. How quickly do you expect to turn in the final site plan, I guess, is the first question.
That's on, we're pretty close to being complete now, so,
We just got to need a little more detail on the stormwater management.
yeah, so it might take a month or 2 to get the final site plan package,
So you'll
completed.
be working over the summer?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. And who's going to do the pork chop?
that's
She's
part
is
of,
doing the pork chop.
You guys are going to install that? Okay. And the signage and all that?
This is the pork chop on their site,
Yeah,
not the median.
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm curious about the flow, but I think, at least from what I saw in the plans, it looks like it's going to be a little bit better.
The applicant put together a PowerPoint presentation we're going to have for next week.
Oh,
And it does show the circulation through with the VDOT project. So hopefully that'll be a better graphic of showing what's
Yeah.
happening.
Shows all improvements as a package, so.
Okay, good.
I have some questions about the site plan package, I mean, the sign plan package. First question is, you say that you met with the Journey Through Hallowed Ground. What was their input on that?
Well, we met with them a long time ago, and since then, they probably had 2 different executive directors since then. So, I don't know, they never came to a ARB, so I don't know what their opinion is, really. We're going to plant some of the red buds into our landscaping,
Okay.
but no one ever came, and I don't even know really who's in charge these days there.
But they've gone through some senior leadership.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have.
Yeah.
Something I've spoken with Alan was trying to capitalize on this location. It is the major highway gateway to the Journey Through Hollow Ground. And one of the things we talked about is maybe doing some sort of graphic inside the store that shows the map of the Journey Through Hollow Ground and kind of do,
that'd be cool.
you are here and there's 10 other sheets along the Journey Through Hollow Ground you can stop and get an MTO on.
Yeah, and I was kind
So-
of asking them for, it helps if they would propose something, but they never did. So if they have some kind of a graphic, they use a typical graphic, and if they could propose something, I'd take it to our marketing department and say, because in our store with the seating, we have, they have our typical interior sign package. I'd be more than happy to take something of theirs to our brand department and say, can we put this somewhere? No one's ever said anything to me. So I'm not quite sure what they want to do.
So their comment was the red buds along
Right.
15. They're also, the Journey had through their pilot program, they were doing some stone and some fencing along the intersection. But I think that's not going to happen until after the interchange is
Right,
done. But
correct.
they've said
Yeah.
all along they're willing to work with the Journey to make that happen.
Yeah, we've had the same issue a little bit because we're trying to do town sign package, so we've gone through the
Yeah.
changes too. So,
Right. I met with somebody actually here, the executive director, probably a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I remember.
But since then, I don't know who's reviewing or responding, because they have gone
Okay.
through some
We'll
changes.
try and get you connected
Okay.
with them. My other thing is in your plans here on page, it's A9B, this drawing
Yes,
with all the interior in the windows, the signage.
yes.
That's quite a lot more than we allow in the town of Haymarket. The percentage of covering the windows, and I understand that it's on the Capway side and on the shopping center side, but the other businesses on the other sides are not permitted to do that. So I'm not sure how we can deal with that.
Those are,
It is, but.
we want to do the four-sided architecture. So the windows are all faux windows. And what this is there's a ribbon of LED light inside the frame. So you have a little bit of light on the dark side of the buildings. This graphic sits about probably this far back into the window. So, I mean, we showed that to the ARB, and they didn't have any comments, so.
I'm on the ARB, and I don't remember saying that.
Well, I mean, they never said no, so I'm curious to, if it's not allowed, just let us know, but I'm just curious how that's evaluated.
I guess, in this, if I may interrupt, so this is the package that the ARB did approve, and they did talk about the signs. One of the things we talked about at the ARB was that the final signs or that was subject to the comprehensive sign package that the council would look at.
Okay,
So the new sign standards that we're getting ready to look at establishes I think, a 40% area for window signs.
okay,
But part of what Sheets is asking is to say we are asking for exceptions to the sign standards as they exist today, and in some ways a little bit more than the sign standard that's coming forward before you. But this is the opportunity for the council to ask questions about these details.
okay.
As I said, the Washington Street facade and the Route 15 facade would not have those graphics on there, but I do understand her point about the folks at
Okay,
McDonald's and,
Leeberry Shopping Center. So the only alternative would be to CVS. If you look at their front entrance, their windows are blacked out. So you still see the window effects, but it's blacked out. So the only alternative would be having some of those areas.
I believe that when it came to the ARB, that it was left that the sign package was going to come separately. Isn't that correct, Marshall?
It was subject to the comprehensive
Yes.
sign package that you're looking
Right,
at.
right.
So
Is there an
So
exception?
would your concern also be that it's shown with vegetables, but obviously next month it could have logos or
It's just-
dollar amounts or,
I think it's a percentage.
It's a percentage of coverage, right.
so you wouldn't care what's behind there?
No, I
Right.
don't care what
Percentage.
it's
Right, okay.
everybody treated equally.
Yeah.
So right now it's what, 40?
That's what the new sign plan says that they're going to be allowed is 40%.
right now, our sign ordinance says about 20% of the total sign area can be covered in signage. I think we're bumping that up to 40. I can have that for you at the hearing. But
I just know that if this has to go to the ARB, that's going to be an issue, so.
right. That's true, I'm just trying to just understand, because it had gone to them. And
No,
they didn't say anything, so we just kept it in there.
Right, but when you came to the ARB, it was the building and the poles for the main gas sign. But as far as the other signage, that was supposed to be a part of the comprehensive sign package that was to come at a later date.
Okay,
So does
I
this
need to
have to go?
clarify.
I'm sorry?
I do need to clarify that point. So they came through with this sign package with the ARB, but what I said was, ARB, you're looking at this, but it's going to require a comprehensive sign package.
Correct.
But you were reviewing the elements that were in this plan
right.
already. What they're going to have to go back to the ARB for is they're adding some directional signs and not window signs, but I think some signs on the doors. That's what's going to have to come back to the ARB because it's a new sign standard that's in there. So you're looking at the original sign.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what the,
So,
move on.
Well, I'd be happy to.
I guess the question would be the amount. Does the
Right.
council have an issue with the amount of signage that's there? And there's different ways to address that if there's a concern.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One of the concerns with window coverage is so that the police are able to see into the building in case of an emergency, and so there might be a way to solve that problem by having translucent signs that you could actually see through and see people on the other side. I can't tell from this illustration how opaque those signs would be in the windows.
These are faux signs. They're faux windows, so they're not translucent.
Oh, they're faux,
That's
not
why,
even-
faux signs, that's why they're on the Cat Valley Way frontage and
Gotcha.
the other side store. The only through windows would be those on Washington and Route 15.
Good to know.
Sorry about that.
If we could work with you this week to understand what has to come out of these, we'd like to have, since we're putting these windows in, we'd like to have some kind of light so the building and the canopy are significantly darker than what's there today. The canopy is not backlit, there's one less canopy. The store is much darker, and so this just adds a little bit of light on those sides that are dark, and they emphasize windows that, we're putting there so that you don't look at a blank brick wall. But if there are elements that should be pulled out of that, could you maybe help us with that this week?
Sure.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
guess
Could
it's.
even send it out to the ARB and see what, send it out to the ARB members and see if they have any.
Okay, just-
What I'm understanding is that it already went to the ARB.
That's
It
what I'm
did
looking
go
at.
to the ARB.
Right.
And they had to submit a sign package they are now to verify that these are the signs that are appropriate.
So I think what we need now is from the new sign ordinance is the percentage that they can cover the windows. I think just to make sure.
I can get that to you, I can verify what
Okay.
that is.
Just so that it's not holding you guys up. You need direction as to
That's
what
all.
percentage, exactly.
So we're looking for, Councilwoman Edwards has brought up this issue. If it's the consensus of the council to go and work with them on it, we'll work on with it, come back to you.
Let's go around the table and see. Councilman Woods?
Yeah, it does, just because it's a lot more than anything else in town, really. I would like to see if we can work on it and see if there's anything that we can mutually come up with to just reduce the amount of signage there.
Is there a sheets around here that has this in the window that we could?
The one we just built in Manassas has,
Oh, by Costco, right there?
yes,
Okay.
it does not have the lettering or the images. It just has the background, which is like a red background. So you have the windows on all four sides, but in the windows is just, again, this string of lights and just like a red background.
Okay.
Like a pattern almost is in there?
It's a pattern.
There's a subtle, you can't really tell. There's
Somewhat, yeah.
There's a subtle, if you look closely at the graphic, you'll see a subtle pattern on the awnings.
We call them squiggles.
Squiggles?
But if you look
Technical
at
term.
the window, the fabric over the window covering, there's a subtle pattern in that. That's what's actually behind the lettering and the food image. So at Sudley, we call it Sudley Manor, that's really all you see in the window is that.
Okay.
Is that something to look at, I guess?
Yeah, and I think that's something that would be more, that I'd be more for.
Just the plain.
Councilman Cottle?
I mean, overall, I think it looks fine to me. Just, I would say that the sign ordinance that the PC is working on with the guidelines, just give it to them and see if they can come as close as possible. That way they're not wasting time with submitting things. That's all I have.
Councilman Passanelli, any thoughts on?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. I think as long as it doesn't hold things up, let's get it moving. I think we want to get this work done. You can certainly work over the next week or so. Absolutely. But I don't want to see it hold things up personally.
Yep. Okay.
I don't think it should go back to the ARB. I think it's something that Marshawn should take on and that he should work with them. I think going back to the ARB would just slow it down. We already have a sign ordinance that's going there in place, so let's avoid the ARB and just run it through Marshawn.
I think what you'll do is obviously look and see what the percentage is and see where we're at with that. Maybe it's something where you're taking every other one out or something to that effect.
The ARB looked at all of it, so anything less, I think, is certainly appropriate. If they were going to do more signage than what the ARB looked at, I'll probably argue maybe the ARB needs to look at it. But if you're doing less, then I think that's fine.
Right.
I'll work with them based on your guidance. Sounds like the pattern is a good alternative. Maybe we split the baby on it, but we can make that happen.
Okay, great. All right.
Sir, I have two additional questions. Sheets, have you looked at more pumps, or is this standard? Having 20 pumps on this size location, is that standard?
Well, I guess two things. That's what Steve Sheets wanted. So, no, but really, the amount of fuel that this station pumps, what we have today is really the most efficient way to do it. You have one, you can pull in very easily. Well, in order to accommodate keeping a store open while building a new one, this was the best option, is that we call it double stack. So you have 5 pumps and 2 behind. So it will really make the flow of the parking lot work a lot better. You won't have to go to do 2 ends of the parking lot to look for fuel. But we're trying to also still be able to serve and pump the fuel that we currently do today.
I mean, this is your business, so you know the flow and know which one works. My second question is there a reason why the building is this dark? Is that standard Sheets color?
Well, the reason is it's just our business plan. Moving forward, cars get better mileage. Gas, no one's, like, as a whole, gas is a flat market. So for companies like us to survive, we're moving more into the food business. So their philosophy is, if you want to sell food, you have to look like food. So our building now is separate from our pumps. It looks more like a restaurant, so people will, associate Sheets with good food. So that's why all of our buildings are brick and stone, and they just aren't as lighted as they used to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for the insight there. Any further questions? Okay. Rashawn?
Thank you,
Okay.
Councilmember. That's all I have.
All right.
See you next week.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to skip around to our department reports so we can get some of our staff out of here. I think we agreed that. Yeah. We'll go first with Denise. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just some updates here. This Saturday, December 5th, is going to be our holiday celebration. We will have our tree lighting ceremony. We have entertainment by local preschools here, Battlefield High School, as well as a couple of church organizations, Haymarket Baptist, St. Michael's Preschool, and Park Valley Church. We have donations of hot chocolate, cider, and coffee through those same church organizations. We'll also have a canned food drive where you can bring canned food to benefit the Haymarket Food Pantry. We will also do some more donations again this year, and those benefits those proceeds will go towards the Willing Warriors Foundation. Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. will be our last meeting for this event. Any council members, any town residents are welcome to attend that 2:30 meeting tomorrow. The museum will have a tour on their Christmas display set in the year 1850. And if you have any other questions, I'll be free to answer those questions at this time.
How are we with the 2 signs?
I spoke to them today. They are starting, actually, the production of the signs, so fingers crossed we'll have those signs prepared no later than Wednesday, so we'll get those up Wednesday.
Great.
2 signs for where?
We have our 2 entrances signs
the ones
that
that we-
been blank.
Down on the Harover property and the one right in front of the museum.
Oh, yeah, I remember those signs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and those signs are going to a more permanent use versus, that is the reason why it took a little bit longer than normal, is because we're going to more of a semi-permanent use. So we'll be switching out the dates and the events that are going on within the town.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, can I ask?
Yeah.
Good to see you, Denise.
Yes.
Was anybody from the council at the business roundtable? Did we?
Councilwoman Edwards and
Excellent.
Councilmember Morris.
How'd that go?
Pretty good.
Did we get some good feedback? Yeah.
Yeah. The businesses were able to meet our new chief of police, those who hadn't met him yet, as well as Mershant gave updates on the sign ordinance, which they were very appreciative because they want to know what direction we are going in with the sign ordinance.
Okay. Hey, how'd that Haymarket Health Forum go? I mean,
That actually went really well. We had 11 in attendance. We're looking at different ways to promote that the next time. They would like to do this on a quarterly basis, but we did have a good attendance for the first time happening here.
and where did that happen? Here?
Right here inside Town Hall. So Group Therapy Associates, for those who don't know, they're one of our town businesses. They do counseling, marriage, children, family counseling. Great business.
Great, super. Okay, that's it, thank you.
I do have one question. In the garage up there behind the one home on the Harover property, is there an old sleigh in there?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Because I was looking through the windows the other day to see what junk's in there.
The door
It
is
looked like
unlocked.
was it? I didn't want to break and enter. I didn't want to get arrested. But is there any way that we could display that? I mean, is it in shape where we could display it, or is it in disrepair?
It is in disrepair. It used to be in the museum, and unfortunately, it was not taken care of over the years, so it's not something that you could climb on, use it, and it may even start to fall apart if you try to move it.
So is it something that's probably beyond repair?
Not that it's beyond repair, it may be cost prohibitive to try to repair it. Just
Which would be beyond repair.
Yes.
Right, I was just curious.
Or maybe,
I can take a look at it before this
Okay.
weekend.
or maybe we can get a volunteer to work on it over the next year.
Boy Scout project.
Thanks. I think you're doing a great job.
Boy
and,
Scout.
Thank you, Councilman Cottle.
And I would like to second that health forum. There's a lot of good information, especially for people who are struggling with mental issues. And it seems to come more to fruition this time of year at the holidays, create a lot of stress for a lot of people. So I thought it was good. I enjoyed it.
Sir?
So we're going around, sure.
Is it okay?
No, I was going to go for,
Is there a color scheme for the museum, month of December?
We're doing holiday colors, so red and green.
And the Christmas tree and decorations. How are we looking into decorating it better and nicer this year? Last year was good. It was a step up from the previous years, and you did a good job last year at last minute. But what are we looking at as far as decoration? This tree is going to be staying up for 4 weeks, 3.5. Are we looking at a lot more lights, colored lights?
No colored
Clear.
lights, just still the clear lights. We're actually also looking into the,
laser,
correct, the laser lights.
which are really neat, if you have not seen those out there yet.
Do you need more lights, or you have enough? It's one of those things where, I'll drive through different towns or different places, and I'll see a Christmas tree, and so much effort goes into a Christmas tree in the middle of a town. But unlike us, I mean, we did great improvement last year, but some trees, they just lack with the lights and decorations. They just throw it,
Yes.
So
We're still looking at the lights that we have from last year, making sure everything works, and if we need additional lights, we plan on getting those.
okay.
Yeah, and that is a challenge, matching up the lights, because when you continue to purchase lights, year after year, they don't all match. Some are clearer than others, some have a yellow hue to them.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Morris, one of the things I'd say is as we continue to improve the town center as a whole, I think over the time, the goal is actually plan something more permanent, in which case then we can really start looking to actually how to decorate. We get to the unique situation where, you know, we are getting it free and we're bringing it in. But we can get more lights. It's just, I know as our town clerk and I found out the first year, it's not fun to put on types of lights. So it just doesn't look right. So we're making sure we get at least the same type of light on there, whether it be LEDs or other versions. But we'll light it up as best we can.
I'm sure if someone wanted to donate a large quantity of lights.
Yeah, have lights. If you need lights, let me know. No, for real.
Absolutely.
I don't know if they'll match, but
Do you have a ladder too?
yeah, a 40-foot ladder. We could probably borrow get the fire station over here and have.
Yeah.
Just throwing out ideas, man. You know, it's.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Any other questions for Denise?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And you have a meeting this week, right? Events,
Yes, tomorrow at 2:30.
2:30, right, okay. All right.
Denise, I can't come to the meeting, but just let me know what you need me to do. Just send me an email.
Okay, our next is our treasurer's report. Ms. Wilson.
Good evening.
Put her new one.
I did want to report after this report was printed last week, we did receive a good bit of the real estate tax money in since then. So we really only have about 25% left to receive. So it's been coming in earlier every year, it seems like. So that's looking pretty good.
I think you mentioned in your email there was just like 2 accounts that carry a lot of the,
Yeah, it's just the
Right.
same ones year after year. That one of them got actually taken care of with this year.
oh, great,
I think there's only one left, or 2.
good to hear.
One small one.
Yep.
Selfish question, make sure I'm not delinquent. Those of us that have it in our escrow, have those already been collected out of escrow?
You mean have the banks paid?
Right.
Well, not as of, I can't tell you for your,
Well, I understand.
without
I'm
looking.
talking about in general.
In general, yes, the banks
Okay.
are very much on
It would
time.
look bad if I was delinquent, so I just figured I'd ask.
I would let you know.
Thank you. All fine, thank you.
But Mr. Carter, right above your head is accountable.
And Sherry, just for, will you get a check, it's like for like Wells Fargo or something, it will have,
It could
Multiple.
have 200 of them.
oh, exactly. So it's not like you get these individual,
Sometimes.
yeah, but mainly it's a big chunk.
You have
and a
these
big-
tax, what do they call them? Like forelogic? They're like the middlemen who, third party, and they'll send like 100 checks
Right,
for different, or they could send one check that covers 200. It
gotcha,
just depends on the bank.
okay. Any other questions?
Was the situation cleared up about people who didn't get their tax bills?
Well, I'm still hearing that some did not.
Yes.
Yeah.
You still haven't?
No, but that's okay, I already got my
When
copy.
I contacted the post office right after I sent that email out, and it kind of is what it is with the post office.
So I
There's
think-
really not a whole lot I can.
So I guess the tactic will be to send out some reminders,
Yes.
you know, just so, as
We're
much as
covering that.
possible.
We have a blurb in the newsletter that's going out tomorrow. I think Jen put it on Facebook, on the website, so just trying to get it out there.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, great, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, if I may, what I suggested in the committee that we had last week was that we do a mid-year review and invite everybody from council, make sure everybody, as much as possible, be there so we can go through the details. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. That'll come up. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, our next item is our building engineer's report. I think we had that. To my surprise, I wasn't aware that Mr. Barbeau's son was in the hospital there. I don't know if any other council knew about this?
What?
Joe's son was in ICU.
No.
Had like a construction accident or something?
Yeah, where he worked, he was in a construction accident, and he had to be taken down to UVA, right? UVA for emergency surgery, but he's doing very well now. It's his hand got crushed in an accident, but
Yeah, I'm not sure when it happened, but obviously, if that could ever be, when we know about that, communicated with the council. I mean, we would love to send notes out as well to.
Excuse me, sir. How long ago this happened? I thought he mentioned it at the public facilities. He did, right? So that would have been a month ago?
it was almost, about a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about it. I mean,
I'll talk to the public facilities chair. I'll talk to the chair of the public facilities.
okay.
Yeah, straighten them out.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, I do have a question, though, if I can ask. At the bottom of his report, he talks about some training in commercial inspections. Are we supporting him in that, or is he doing that through his company?
He does this as continuing education for himself, and it's part of his training through TCS, through the Total Construction Solutions. We don't have direct input on that training, so it just makes them more marketable.
Right, got it.
Or
Thanks.
their services more marketable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further comments there. We'll go on to our our engineers report. Sorry, Holly.
An update, on Wednesday last week, Finley came and passed out letters to the affected property owners that are going to have apron replacements, saying they'll be working on the aprons Wednesday the 2nd through Friday the 4th. Looking at the weather, I don't think it's going to start on Wednesday. I think we're supposed to have rain through Wednesday. But, so then I assume that they will start on Thursday. As a reminder, there will be a closed session at the council meeting to further discuss Finley. And then if there's any other questions.
I did have one, but I read Brian's report, so I don't have to ask it.
Okay.
He already answered it about the two signs and the third sign, so that's good, thanks.
Any thing about VDOT, anything as of today, as far as the bridge?
I was thinking about that as I was driving in because, we're hitting December, so I'll reach out to them. I'll be here on Monday, obviously, so I'll see if I can't see if I can't get some kind of update about when they think the bridge will be open, if they're still on track for the end of the year.
Do they normally do like an opening ceremony for something like that, or no?
It will probably be more of when there's further, because this is just trying to get people back on the road. If they have an opening ceremony, I would think it'd be further along in the process. I don't know if they're going to have one for the I-66 widening. I would imagine they would have one for the interchange, because that's kind of like an innovative design. But I can ask if they're going to have one. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be, they want to get traffic on it, and then that's when they're going to do all the decorative stuff is after that. So I don't think there'll be a ribbon cutting or anything for by the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Holly? Yes.
Holly, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Status on the double stack? You know, if they've completed?
On the Dominion work?
Yeah.
No, they are actually still working on it. We got some updates where they were doing some additional switching, and there was power outages associated with that, so that they are still working on it.
2 weeks ago, I saw them back on this pole here in the front lot, and I thought they were removing the two guy wires, but they didn't.
I begged and pleaded for those guy wires to not have to go in, because the alternative is a guy pole, where they take another pole and lean it up, and I was like, that's even worse to me than guy wires, because at least those are a little thinner. But I did ask them, once I realized they were looking at even guy wires, is there any way that you can avoid doing it? And the answer was no, because what would happen is that over time, the pole would lean and be subject to failure. So they because of the angles that everything was working, so they said they have to have something there. But I did put that out. I didn't want the guy wires either.
Right.
But there was just.
But I've seen some guy wires where it comes out, a bar comes out perpendicular to the pole and then parallel to the existing pole. Have you ever seen those guy wires?
I think there might, I think where it goes over a sidewalk or something, those are typically done where where sidewalk locations are. I would have to look,
BB&T?
I have not heard of any discussions of changing it. It would still have to come back onto town hall property because there's no green space for them to, like, if you're trying to span a sidewalk and anchor towards the road, or if you have a pole and you're trying to get over a sidewalk, there's no green space next to the road. So we still would have something on our property any way you look at it.
So what was the reason for guy wire if other poles, bless you,
I'm sorry?
if other poles don't have it, don't use guy
It normally has
wires?
to do with the if you're turning any kind of angle at the pole, and I believe that there is an angle due to the offsets from the
corner.
in front of the Red House Ordinary. To us, there's and then when you go down, there's an angle there.
Oh.
So because we also had them push it further back so that we could have our sidewalk, which increased that. Before there might not have been as bad of an angle, and now there was a worse angle. You get benefits one way and you pay for it someplace else. That's about all I can say for that.
Okay.
I still think that we'll be able to have a good green even with it. Like, it's better than a guy pole.
Okay.
I absolutely, you said, a guy pole would be unacceptable. It's not the prettiest thing, but it still can be. To me, it's not as obtrusive.
And I'm sure we haven't yet heard any word on utility companies when they might be coming out to do their portion. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Ollie? All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very much. Next up, Marchant, our planners report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly answer any questions on the report that I forwarded to you. There's two updates. Many people have asked me about the status of the Villages of Haymarket Phase 2, the 5 houses. They're having to relocate a Dominion power pole. So that work has stopped. They've gone out and reseeded the site, which you're required to do if you do land disturbing activities. And so once that pole is moved, they'll start moving forward again with that project. Robinson's Paradise, I didn't indicate in here, they had deferred further action by the commission. I did get a phone call last week from the applicant's representative. Need to catch up with him, but I have a feeling they want to resubmit something fairly soon. So, and I will update you once that happens.
That go to the planning commission again first?
They had their hearing, so it would have to go back to the commission, yes, sir.
Okay.
Sure.
Marcia, a quick question on this Blake Drive. Do you have any idea when they're going to move that pole?
Did you get any updates on that? No, they haven't.
You should call Travis.
I'm sorry, Jennifer just said that they're still waiting. So I don't think they've given them any timeline. They move at their own pace, apparently. So.
Is it one of the new poles?
No, sir. It's right at the corner of Dogwood Park Drive and Blight Drive. And that house that's on the end, if you drive out there, you'll see it. It's right in the side yard. So I assume the applicant's motivated to get it done, so they're probably hounding Dominion as much as they can to get it done.
Yeah, I know my neighbor there on the end, he's not too happy with the black silt fence cutting all the way halfway across his yard.
The only probably doesn't help him much, but you can say, well, that fence there keeps the dirt from getting into your house, so hopefully.
Maybe you can give
But
Travis
there's
a
some
call.
flooding before. Maybe that was the wrong analogy. I'm sorry.
So the silk fence is actually in his yard? Is that part of an easement that they've?
Correct. So they're extending the stormwater pipe down to the corner, and it has a depression, so they have to regrade some of that area. So they have to go up into the gentleman's yard to reslope it so that all the water goes down into the catch basin. I'm answering the engineer's question. Did I say that right?
That's right. She was shaking her head yes,
She was
so
giving me
you were doing the right thing.
I got no kick under the table. So.
Yep. Okay.
So
it just amazes me that they would have known from the get-go that that pole would have to be moved.
we went back and looked through our plans, and we had. Hold on, let Holly do it. Sorry.
This is something that we've been struggling with, where all of our site plan checklists in the counties, everybody says you're supposed to show proposed easements, proposed utility easements, including electric. And historically, throughout the Northern Virginia area that I know of, everybody does that coordination after the fact. And so it gets left and missed off. And so the town, we've seen this happen before. There was a time where there was a power pole here at Fayette Street and Washington Street, sat in the middle of the street for months. So we have now, not on this plan, but we have really been cracking down on people saying, you've got to be showing the proposed utility easements, including electric. And we're getting a lot of fight back because people aren't expecting that. Dominion takes a long time. If you actually kind of looked through your materials, Chick-fil-A doesn't have theirs yet. You know, because, you know, we told them about it over a year ago, and they, like, oh, no, you don't need that. And, oh, yes, we do. It's on our checklist. It's on Prince William County's checklist, just no one did it. But we've had so many problems either where people then come in and ask for site plans, and they don't see some of these utility easements on their plans, or stuff like this where it's halting construction, which actually costs the homeowner or the developer more money because you're shutting down construction. So I just want to say we're digging in our heels now and forcing this coordination at an earlier stage. But, yeah, that's something the property owner was responsible for and apparently did not do.
And first of all, well done in digging in your heels. Is there any way we could hold up them breaking ground until they show us these things?
Well, that's what we're trying to do now is actually make it a requirement before getting final site plan approval to show where the proposed electric easements are going to be. And that would cover those issues. What we were trying to do with Chick-fil-A is tie it to either posting bonds, and they were actually not happy with that, so maybe bond release. But what our goal is I'm trying to tell people it needs to be on the final site plan, so you will have that coordination done prior to site plan approval now, because there's been too many problems.
And we historically get blamed for it.
So. Yeah, it's all. That much is true, or you know that you're holding up my plan or something like that, and this is a perfect example why we are digging our heels in now, because of this type of issue. It's not our responsibility to relocate the utilities, but I feel like part of our job is also to be looking out for the developer's interest when we review the plans and stuff like that. And if we're not provided the information, it's hard for us to do that.
And just one for clarification, the multi-use path on Catharpin is on the east side or west side? West is Winchester.
No, I know. Catharpin, because I have not been paying as close.
I'm sorry, not
attention.
Catharpin. I'm sorry, Jefferson.
Oh, on Jefferson Street. Jefferson Street is on the west side.
West side.
That is on it's a town hall side. It's on our side.
Okay.
And our project, our pedestrian improvement project, will pick up, because that path will stop opposite of Cheyenne Way. We're going to pick up from there and be bringing it down to our property here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, yeah, the Catharpin, I was like, oh, because there's a shared use path on there, and I think that
there
one
is?
might be, yeah, there will be one on the Catharpin, but I think that one might be on the east side.
Probably tagging it right into, what's that new supermarket?
But I'm just not as familiar with that. I concentrated on what's happening on 15. And
No, I made a
that's
mistake.
why I
It's
looked at you
Jefferson.
with a blank look. I was like, gosh, I'm not sure.
Okay. Anything else for Rashawn? Sorry.
Yeah.
Councilman Woods.
Everything moving along smoothly with the Masonic Lodge's redo of their building? Not the actual lodge, but
So the tobaccology wanted to go in there. I believe Joe Barbo has been out there. I think the gentleman that runs it is waiting on his humidor. I guess there was a holdup with the redwood for his humidor. So I think it's a self-imposed delay in opening, not something that the town is holding up on. And then simultaneously, we're also going to refocus, once we get Sheets and Chick-fil-A done, we'll refocus on looking at those site plans as well.
Great. And on that topic, where is his signage going? I mean, where is it that he would even advertise?
We've offered to work with him on that. I just don't think he's ready yet.
Yeah, I don't think he really wants to put up signs. That's
Word of
part
mouth.
of his,
Word of mouth.
yeah, exactly.
His personal vehicle is a little hard to miss. But,
Covers it with that.
rather large truck, but
Yeah.
no, I've not heard from him.
Okay.
Yes.
It may have been stated, Marcia, and I didn't catch it, but Chick-fil-A is ahead of Sheets, obviously, because they're coming up on their final SUP, correct?
their final site plan. They already had a site plan, they're just amending it.
I guess my point is, provided it all goes well on next week, how soon will they start construction? Because I've had a lot of people ask me about that. I had about 6 people yesterday ask me, when are they going to start putting a shovel in the ground?
They want to move as soon as they can. If you take action next week, the next step is for Chick-fil-A to get the construction plans approved by Joe Barbo. And I think they got to pull a grading permit through Holly and post their bonds. And once that's done, then they can move forward as quickly as they
The
can.
first quarter of 2016?
I believe so, yes, sir.
So it goes site plan, construction plan, grading, and then,
Building permits.
okay.
Very little town involvement. I say little, but I mean, we're down to the final end of this. I mean,
Correct. Once it's out of your realm, then it's mostly coordination with Holly, Joe, VDOT, and all those folks. So if I could say,
One of the things is, that we just talked about the utility easements that's in there. We had originally put that in, that prior to posting bonds, they would have to have the utility easement. That's to your discretion, if you want to choose that, or if you want to say after, when they're going for bond release. What Marchant and I were trying to do is to avoid the issues that have appeared elsewhere and get it prior to them breaking ground. Now, according to the emails that I received from the applicant that I need to follow back up on, Dominion is saying that they will have the easements prepared for them within the next couple weeks. But everybody knows that Dominion is going to do what Dominion wants to do. So it's not guaranteed. So it might be that that motion needs to, if you guys are more interested in letting them break ground sooner and not holding them up, then maybe what it is that they requested that we wait until occupancy. But I also, Marchant and I kind of talked about this. We don't want to tie that to occupancy, because same deal happens if they don't have the easements provided, then the town is holding us up and not giving us occupancy. Right. So if you want to postpone that next Monday, then what Marchant and I what we're going to recommend is we tie it to bond release. That they can't get bond release until they provide the.
do we have any issue with that?
Well,
It sounds like that's more.
does Chick-fil-A know that it would cost them more if they don't have these things in place?
When you say cost more.
I mean, if construction comes to a halt or they can't open because of Dominion holding them up, do they know that it's in their best interest to get it before they break ground?
It is in their best interest, and they are attempting to do so, because like I said, but they felt it was unreasonable for us to ask for it to be tied to posting of the bonds. In theory, we could deny site plan approval, and we were at least trying to give them a little leeway there. It's really going to be town council's decision what to tie it to, is really what I'm getting to. I would recommend, if you don't want to tie it to posting of the bonds so that they can start construction, you tie it to bond release, and then if there's construction issues because of that, they suffer the consequences. We tried to help them.
Let's hear from Martin.
I just want to make sure that when we draft the bonds, that's very clear, that they understand if that's the direction the council wants, because that's not in our standard bond form, that's going to be, because typically the bond release is, did you put in the public improvements that you bonded for? And then if the answer is yes, you're entitled to your money back. And so this would be an additional condition, which I think we would need to make clear that we're doing this as an accommodation for them, and that we could have required it up front at the site plan stage, and that solely as an accommodation for them, we're doing this to keep the construction rolling, so that they can't come back later and say, well, we did the improvements, you have to release it now.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, packet page 5, draft motion number 3 is the motion that we're referring to, where you're approving the site plan revision. You're also conditioned upon the following bonds may not be posted for construction. So if you want to say that bonds may not be released, would be the amended language that you would show there. So
Why don't we go ahead and show that then?
Show it that way?
We've got a consensus here that.
Okay.
Yep.
Going back to Councilman Caudle's statement real quick, the way we've set up the motions is if you want to take action next week, the commission would hold their hearing, close the hearing, make their draft motion, sending it to you with their recommendation. Council would have their hearing and then would accept the commission's recommendation. A joint hearing. But we've put the motions in such a way that commission sends it, and you pick it up and read these draft motions to have the plan executed that evening.
Great, good. Okay,
Trying to work smart, not hard.
that's right.
I just asked one. Next week, logistics, since we'll have the public here, where will the PC be seated?
I think you usually said right there, yeah,
Right.
right there from the chairs.
Right.
Sitting on the stuff
Yeah.
floor?
Yeah, they usually sit in the chairs or at the table, they usually come up and go ahead and open up their meeting. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Marshawn, it's crisscross applesauce, by the way. It is not what you just said.
He corrected himself.
No.
He corrected himself.
Okay,
There's logistics of how we make this happen.
Right.
Working with Jen, we got to record it, we got to have it on video.
right,
Question.
okay.
Question for Marshawn, sir. Marshawn, your views on the interchange, 55, 15, Chick-fil-A construction, then Sheets construction, traffic through the town. Maybe the chief is here too. It's, no, we're looking not just on large vehicles driving down on Jefferson and exiting the town, but no, we're looking at vehicles throughout the entire town, especially with the Jefferson Bridge. What do you envision in any issues, any major issues as far? No, we're looking at one construction wrapping up, another one on the way, and at the tail end of this one wrapping up, or the middle of the Chick-fil-A, you have Sheets coming into play. Do you foresee any issues?
It's going to be painful in the near term. Right now, traffic flows like water. Most people used to go on Old Carolina Road because that was quicker than trying to get over the backup on the bridge. Once that bridge is open, in theory, it's going to be quicker to stay on 15 than to try to get on Old Carolina and cut through town. The challenge we're going to have is once the interchange is built, the choke point moves from the interchange down to the railroad, because you now are having to go from 4 lanes to 2, cross the railroad, and then go back to 4. So I think we're going to see, and there's some effort underway, I think, by the county and VDOT to accelerate the bridge crossing over the railroad track. So I think once a couple things are going to happen. Old Carolina will open up. We're going to get that through traffic again. We have to look at the light at the corner. What's helping us is that Gainesville is now open, so a lot of that traffic that was wanting to come this way is going to go that way. The interchange project is going to create a through lane. Right now, if you're trying to go to Walmart or turn right on 15, that new construction is going to allow some separate movements, but that's not going to happen until it's done. So there's going to be a time when all these moving pieces are going to be going back and forth, where it's going to be more pain than benefit for the time being. I think ultimately, once Old Carolina is open, 15 is open, the Haymarket bypass, which is Somerset Crossing, which will punch through, come across to 15. You can see where it's cut through right across from Villages of Piedmont at 15. You're going to now have another parallel route, east-west, south of town. Once that gets done, I think we're going to be manageable. Now, what VRE brings, we'll deal with that issue once we don't want to talk about that right now. There's a report later on about that. So to answer your question, I think it will get better. It's just going to be painful in the near term.
And I know about 3 or 4 months ago, I'd asked Holly to check with VDOT to see if there's any way we could have, just like what we did here at the intersection of Washington and Jefferson, if we could have that through lane now. And they came back with the placing of the islands doesn't allow that. Islands are gone. But is there any way that they could have that through lane? There's a through lane for turning at CVS and a through lane to go across 55. And then to turn left onto 15, just having 3 lanes there, because I don't know if it's possible to get it in temporarily. No. Holly, or I don't know, what are your thoughts?
When I ask about the bridge, I'm also going to ask about the work on Washington Street, because I anticipated that beginning anytime. Now, one of the things I did ask before they started is that not to be working on Washington Street while the bridge was closed. So I don't know if that's part of the reason for the delay. But I anticipated starting any time, so they're not going to be doing anything in the interim. It's just not just the island issue, but the engineering time and money. They have to be fiscally responsible, just like we do. And the engineering time, and then whatever the efforts were to be to remove islands or restripe, is not worth it when they are planning on reconstructing the area, and it's going to be a mess during construction. Now, they have maintenance of traffic plans. They're supposed to be trying to keep at least the same number of lanes open during construction. Just like on 15, they're supposed to keep the same number of lanes open with temporary shutdowns. But it's going to be painful. They're going to be working on Washington Street, I have a feeling, at the same time that Chick-fil-A is under construction. I think Sheetz is going to be following up later. But it's going to be, when they're working on 15 in the south side and Washington Street, just like when we were doing our enhancement project, it's going to hurt. And there's no way to do it. We just have to try and keep a positive outlook that once it's done, it will be better.
I mean, thank God we're getting Jefferson open up, and what they did in Gainesville has helped a lot.
That will help, because a lot of the people, if they find the delays on 15, now they're supposed to keep the same number of lanes open.
True, but for
just going to shifting, people feel uncomfortable, they will be able to go through Gainesville and come in that
But
side.
I go out that way now.
yeah, I use it
because
now.
I
I use it now
that
to
this
get on
is bad.
66, which is much easier. And I'll ask the same question to our chief when he comes to the podium. Is the chief aware of all the possible backlog of traffic with the construction? Is he being kept in the loop with any meetings that he needs to attend to?
I know that I definitely would, especially even when they were doing the nightly closures on Cat Harpin. I know that I was sending him emails, and I think he's on the list of the. He's also on the list of even for like the single lane closures and stuff. Every week when those come out, I believe you get those emails as well.
Another thing I would add, Councilman Morris, is the southbound lane, as part of the development of the town center plan, we're including an additional lane on the southbound. So if you're coming into town, you'll be able to have a lane to turn right or a lane to go straight, mimicking what we have right now going east west. So that hopefully will reduce some of the backlog we get at the light.
And will that 3 lanes continue across Washington?
We have asked the Payne Lane project to receive that, and they, at this point, or last time we spoke with the developer, they were agreeing to look at that.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
It sounds like what we really need to do also is develop a communications plan for folks in town so that they understand exactly what the implications are of all of this work. And maybe, perhaps for us, even a timeline might be helpful to the extent you can do one, not knowing where everything is, but...
Well, I had done one before, which obviously some of those dates had slipped and slid because, and even when I went to a meeting, they changed the schedule. I mean, I can try and update that. I will say that we do, every week, we're notified of the possible lane closures. We do that on our web on a weekly basis. When we get notification, Jen updates it. And I kind of translate it, and every Monday we talk about where there could be possible lane closures. Some of it I've noticed is that we can try and communicate with people and send information out, and until they're directly affected, they don't get it. Because we've had some of that with like the work on Washington Street. Once they cleared the trees, the people in Sherwood Forest, but back to it, they were like, what's going on? But I know we had communicated with them, VDOT, we'd had the meetings. So sometimes I'm all for trying to get all the communication out there that we can, and any suggestions are appreciated. It's VDOT's responsibility, but we're a partner. But we have to realize that some people won't come forward until it directly impacts them.
I think one of the ways to help that, your point, Joe, it's a good and valid point. I think what we could do is try to fine-tune the timeline with the 4 major projects that's going on and give it to us. They're going to stop Matt on the corner of Blythe anyway and ask him while he's walking his dog. So, give him the information to share it with the 5 or the 6 people. Give me
Did you guys find that the first one I gave you was helpful?
Oh,
Was
yeah.
I able to
Oh,
share
yes,
with everybody?
definitely, definitely. You did good with it.
Okay.
And I'm
I'll
just saying,
work on-
use us more.
I'll work on getting that updated. It's a little bit difficult too because I have several contractors I have to get approval from too. But I will work. I don't know when I'll get it to you, but I will work on it.
And the good thing now is that you have us, the council members, scattered throughout every one of the HOAs. So use us.
And I think it's our responsibility as a town, as a staff, as a council, to make sure at least we get out there and try to expand on that as much as possible.
Well, and that's the thing.
So, you know, website is fine, Facebook, other media, social media, texting. I get texts on a regular basis when we have meetings. That's great. So it's a combination of things. It can't be just one avenue.
Even something as simple as the tree lighting this week for that 3 hours. Maybe just have a little information. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you're interested in some road, I mean, just casual, because if one person finds out, they tend to talk to their neighbors and kind of spread it word of mouth. Just an idea, anytime we have an event, maybe just something small, something. Yeah, just something simple where people, you know, like the Divergent Diamond, you know, what's going on with it? I've had people ask me that question. They see pipes and things of that nature. You know, I've had a lot of questions, you know, getting around about the bridge over here, just, there's a lot going on. People read the Bull Run Observer, which, you know, creates more questions. Some good, some bad, but the more we know, the better we can help you all and hopefully lighten the burden.
People like to be spoon-fed. They don't want to have to go out there and look for the information.
Well, they're all busy. We're all busy. There's a lot of information, and people are inundated with emails and text, and information overload. So, you know, we can do what we can do.
Okay. Further questions for Rashawn? Okay. All right. Next up is our police report. How are you doing, Chief? Great. Good to hear.
Well, I started out this report with our significant events, and I actually put one on there that we talked about last month. And I put it on there because something very interesting happened, and that was a felonious assault at the Iceplex. And at the time, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office had chosen not to prosecute that case. And they did so under the basis of assumption of risk. And then for some speculative reasons on my part anyway, they have reversed themselves, and they are now going to prosecute that case. And so they're going to prosecute it not as a felony, but a misdemeanor assault. But that is probably an extremely rare event to prosecute somebody for assault for the incident that occurred on the field of play. And so it's going to be interesting to watch it progress. It might actually be an event that gathers some media attention because it is so rare. But I guess we'll see as it proceeds. Yeah, otherwise, we did have one larceny over in Green Hill, and that was, interestingly enough, the flowers taken from the landscaping. They were planted, and then a day later they were taken. I can't understand the motivation of that. I know that we have some new cameras installed, and apparently the footage isn't enough to really develop any good suspects.
Free cameras. Those are the free cameras?
No, the free cameras we gave to the town. These are the really good cameras. Yeah. Well, the technology changes, yeah.
We do continue to make DUI arrests, also some drug arrests. And the one thing I point out about drug arrests is there are in both these cases attached other criminal activity. In both these cases, they had to be driving suspended. But I think it speaks to perhaps the flavor of the person that we're arresting for possession of marijuana. And then ultimately, we also had a hit and run at Piedmont that we had no leads on, so we inactivated it. I did look at our traffic cases, and everything that I represent is year-to-date for the various years. And so we have seen a little bit of a spike in year-to-date crashes compared to a trend that I think the first time I came, before you have been trending downwards. And it has started to trend back upwards for 2015. And it's exactly what you all just spent the last 15 minutes talking about, and that's the construction. And clearly what you're seeing on 15 and to a lesser degree the western part of Washington are crashes caused by the congestion and then the associated, I think, confusion over traffic barricades and signage and just the general sort of circumstances that associate intensive traffic control with construction. Some of them, too, by the way, have been with commercial motor vehicles associated with the work on the project. One in particular was a rear-ender with a dump truck who wasn't anticipating the car in front of him stopping on 15 due to the backed up traffic and rear-ended him. So some of it is directly caused in terms of the vehicles, but virtually all of it, with that little bit of an increase, is associated with the construction. I also looked at traffic enforcement year-to-date, and again, we are trending, I think, right where we want to be. Year-to-date, we've written 671 summons in total. I broke speed out, and again, I talked about the ratio of our enforcement in our reduced speed zones versus our other zones. And again, I like the ratios that we're keeping. The vast majority of the summons that we're writing for speeding are our reduced speed zones, which most typically are going to be Washington, Jefferson south of Washington, and then Route 15. A couple of notes on the budget. My numbers are actually about a week dated, but on overtime, we are still doing pretty good. And you'll see on some later graphs, we paid a little bit more attention to it in October, and we barely accrued any overtime at all. And that puts the numbers back in alignment with the fiscal year. There is a lot of confusion internal to the police department, and I think in general on how the police department, the officers, earn overtime. And overtime is a misnomer, by the way. I think a better word is premium pay. Premium pay is time and a half. And how we calculate it in the town is important to understand. So I just spent a couple of minutes in this report explaining it. But by FLSA standards, we can define our work period several different ways. We can define it as a 14-day period or a 7-day period or a 28-day period. Work period, by the way, is not associated with pay period. Pay periods and work periods are two separate things. We define our work period as 28 days. And by FSLS standards, you can earn 171 hours before you accrue time and a half or premium pay. Our officers are scheduled in that period for 168 hours. So there's another 3 hours, that's called gap pay. There's another 3 hours before they hit the threshold where they can earn premium pay. You can call that overtime pay, so it's straight time. But there's about 3 hours. So what happens is that, and I'll use an example, in the month of January, maybe the first week in January, an officer will work 10 extra hours. So instead of his 42 hours, he works 52 hours. 3 weeks go by. Then the fourth week, the final week of that 28-day pay period, he takes 2 days of annual leave. So he takes 24 hours of annual leave. Annual leave and holiday pay do not count as hours worked. And so even though that first week he earned an extra 10 hours, he doesn't get paid premium pay for that. Because in that 28-day work period, his annual leave has offset those extra hours that he or she accrued. And so this town, and the reason I bring that up, is that I did break down the number of hours of overtime, not necessarily premium pay, but overtime that officers work, that does not correlate to us paying them time and a half. Because most of those extra hours are straight pay because they were offset by annual leave. And to a slightly lesser degree, they can be offset by holiday pay, not to the degree that annual leave does. And if this agency, by the way, was more than 100 members, a large agency in Virginia, Chapter 9.1 of Code of Virginia governs that much more strictly for large agencies. In large agencies, annual leave counts towards hours worked. So you couldn't get away with that. And so the law is very, very generous to the town of Haymarket. And it is why, although, again, the officers work many more hours than they are scheduled to, in most cases, that's not going to be paid as premium pay. That's going to be paid as overtime pay, but straight time.
Excellent. Excellent.
I know that's confusing, but it's important, I think, for everybody to understand because, again, it does speak to the perspective of, again, what we're paying for and what we're not paying for.
Excellent.
Good. I know that's the case with the town of Leesburg. You take 2 vacation time in a week. You cannot go into a extra shift.
And it depends on how they define their work period. And where I came from, the work period, although it's different, again, because state code does apply, but the work period was defined as 14 days. And so it does make a difference. And gap pay in a larger agency, gap pay is paid at premium pay for large agencies. But in that way, I guess from a fiscal perspective, the town is fortunate that there's only a handful of officers.
Okay.
Good. But that being said, I did look at what are we accruing extra hours for. And I put that on this chart on my page 4. And the vast majority of it is what I would describe as non-discretionary. The largest of those categories is shift carryover, and there's just nothing you can do about that. If a late call comes out, then it has to be handled, or we have to finish processing an arrest or whatever it may be. Court and training occurs once a month, and what we try to do is we have our court date, and then because everybody's in the office, we try to do a little bit of training afterwards. And again, court is mandatory. And so, I sort of count that as non-discretionary. Training, on the other hand, is somewhat discretionary in that we can try to schedule training around the work cycle of particular officers. And I do try to do that as much as we can to mitigate impact on overtime. So that is a little bit discretionary. There's a category in there, by the way, that's not documented. I had no idea what that overtime was for because it wasn't noted. What I ended up doing, and this is the first pay period that it has occurred, I redesigned the timesheet for police department employees. And now if they accrue any hours over those that are scheduled, they have to write an explanation of why. If it's discretionary, that is predicted 2 weeks beforehand. They need to get my approval first. And then shift coverage, case follow-up, and some admin assignments are, again, generally speaking, going to be non-discretionary or things that we have to get done. I did, again, look at how those were distributed across the first 5 months of the fiscal year, and the graph speaks for itself. I'm not sure why August was as high as it was, but we started focusing on it in September, and then October I really focused on it. And the number of hours accrued, again, we probably didn't, I'm not sure we paid an hour of premium pay for those 12 hours in October. We accrued them. I'm not sure we even paid overtime for them. And that's why you see the overtime budget start coming a little bit more into alignment with where we're at in the fiscal year. Any questions on that?
That's good.
I like it.
Okay, we will keep an eye on it.
Just one question on it.
Yes.
Is shift carryover approved by you, or is it?
No.
It's not.
No. It might occur at 2 o'clock in the morning, and
You just don't want to be woken up.
I really don't want to be woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. What I will look at, though, is is, in my estimation, was it justified? In other words, was there a valid reason for them to work over their scheduled hours? And I have not seen one yet where I said, well, you know what, you could have taken care of that the next shift.
I think that's what I meant by approved is not approved before, but approved before they submit the hours in. So you do look at them before
I
they're
look
submitted.
at every accrual of overtime, every single one. We've actually, even before my tenure here, interim Chief Smith, he made adjustments occasionally where it was hours that they should not have accrued. And so you have to be a little bit careful with that because hours worked are hours worked.
Right.
And again, if they work the hours, you have to pay for them.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly, if I see something out of line, I'll take corrective action. We had, I think, actually a pretty busy month with some of our community relations. I attended the Haymarket Gainesville Business Association meeting. I did attend the Longstreet Commons HOA where we discussed the pending opening of the Jefferson Street Bridge and came up with some ideas on how to proceed. Particularly, and this surprised me that the HOA wasn't aware of our town statute that accepts 46.2, the Traffic Code of Virginia, particularly where there are 100 or more buildings. And of course, Longstreet has more than 100 townhomes, and therefore 46.2 is applicable in the streets of the development. That being said, what I explained to them and actually gave them a copy is that to enforce traffic signs, they have to meet those standards defined in code. And right now they don't. And so they're going to work, they have that language in hand, and they're going to work to make sure, for instance, that their stop signs are meeting code so that we can actually enforce stop sign violations when this inevitable cut-through traffic occurs.
I don't think it's a matter of the ignorance on the HOA. I think it's mostly what you bring to the table. So it's you reached out, we first reached out to you, invited you to the meeting, but it's really what you bring to the table that you're able to explain to the HOA, hey, these are, before we can enforce anything, you need to be following these code lines. So, part of, yes, it's the HOA's ignorance to it, but it's, Chief, really, it's what you bring to the table in advising the HOA.
Yeah, thank you. We also had a couple of Halloween celebrations. We participated in Park Valley Trunk or Treat, which first time I've been anything like that is incredible.
Incredible, isn't it?
It was probably, if we're interested in generating public relations, it's probably the best public relations event I've been to yet. We had tremendous exposure there as an agency, and I got nothing but good feedback from the folks who were there. We also had 5 officers out on Halloween night. We had the 3 who were regularly scheduled, then I came out, and our part-time officer also came out. And so we really paid attention to our neighborhoods. We got out, we talked to people, we handed out candy, we made our presence felt. And again, if you measure success by not having incidents, that was a successful night, because I don't think we had one incident that we had to respond to. And I'm used to where I came from, Halloween's being a sort of torturous event where there are a lot of calls for service. And it was a smooth and wonderful event. And so, yeah, you couldn't be happier by how it turned out. A couple of other smaller items. Officer Shaver gave a safety talk to the Cub Scouts. And Casey Downer, who has a nonprofit Calling All Souls, we allowed her to utilize the police department facilities for some human trafficking training. She's done 3 sessions there. And we're continuing to find ways to partner with her. I met with her again today. A lady is incredibly passionate about that topic, and she's going to push an agenda forward as aggressively as she can. And if we can help her out, I'm always willing to help her. I stuck a new category in here, and just current initiatives, things that are going on right now. The first of these we had talked about, but I'm doing it now. And that is performance plans for every employee in the police department. And I wrote the plans for each employee. And I have sat down with about half of them and reviewed it with them. I have to do a couple more employees, and then we will have everybody up and running in terms of what my expectations are and what we look towards a final year-end review for their performance. I know we had talked about, and this might have been in the Public Safety Subcommittee meeting, but we had talked about incorporating a community goal in each of their plans, which I have done. So they have one fiscal year goal that they need to meet, which involves somehow being active in the community. So each officer and our civilian staff will have some form of community involvement. Our new cruiser, our Ford Interceptor utility, will actually be in service tomorrow. It got its tags today. The work is done, so the officer who the vehicle is assigned to will be out on patrol tomorrow afternoon, and you will see it out and about. And it looks great. Yeah, I couldn't have been happier. And we still have to we have to look at the final tally of what we spent, and I'll need to confirm this, but they're telling me that we might have come in about $4,500 under what we budgeted. There are some light packages and other things that we didn't need, and so we didn't spend the money, so we probably have a little excess funding left over from that project. We are also on December 15th going to undergo some more significantly robust firearms training than what this agency is used to doing. And they qualify once a year, and that is all they do. They shoot a qualification course, and then they're done. If you understand the case law associated with failure to train, particularly with the use of deadly force, that's unacceptable. And I think in the Public Safety Committee, we can look at that more closely because, again, I think there needs to be a thorough understanding of what case law dictates we do, and we are not meeting that standard right now. And this is equally about protecting the officer, protecting citizens, and protecting this town fiscally. And so we are going to do, again, more robust training in December that will meet those standards. I am also working with Prince William County Police to establish a one-button transfer for our phones in headquarters. And it just takes Donna being away for half a day for me to realize how many calls we take into the police department for things that have nothing to do with the corporate limits of Haymarket.
Right.
And it is in part because I guess Haymarket is such a large zip code, but we take anywhere from half a dozen to 2 dozen calls a day. And the vast majority of those are for service calls outside the corporate limits of Haymarket. What is concerning is what happened last week as an example. And I can't tell you why people don't call 911, but a man calls the police department, and he's in an apartment complex off of Heathcote, and his wife is suffering a medical emergency. She is unconscious. And so with no way to transfer that call, our receptionist has him on the landline. She has dialed 911 on her cell phone, and she's relaying this information back and forth, which, thank God, he never went into respiratory arrest or cardiac arrest, and then they had to do that three-way on how to do CPR. I don't know how well that would have worked, but it certainly points to the need to be able to immediately transfer these calls to the Public Safety Communications Center, and that's what we're working on now. Excellent. Finally, I did speak with VDOT last week, and as this project progresses, there are going to be periods of time where they need to shut down roadways within the corporate confines of Haymarket. Most notably is going to be when they shut down Interstate 66 overnight to install beams on the first bridge going up. And they're going to ask us to supply officers to shut down the roads. Now, that will be in an off-duty capacity, and they'll pay the officers on a contract basis. But I'm going to meet with them in the next week or so. And I think they're actually scheduled right now to install those beams between December 16th and December 18th. And essentially what they will do is shut down 66 overnight, then bring them up the exit ramps, cross over 15, and then exit back onto 66. And our part of that will be controlling the intersections there at 15 to allow the smooth flow of traffic.
So you don't anticipate any detours through town?
No.
They
Good.
do it at,
You know, I got it. I'm just, because
Not for that phase of work, no. He made it very clear, and I would suggest extremely gracious in terms of saying, what do you need? You tell me what you need, and I will make the contractor provide it. And so as an example, they will put tower lights at the intersection of 15 and 66 to illuminate it so that all officers are in a safe environment as they direct traffic. They were very good that way, and probably we will expand on some of that when we meet before the work begins.
Okay.
And sir, which bridge is that for?
That will be for the one where they are just about finished with the pilings now.
Okay.
Over 66.
West.
Yes. 15 bridge.
The Virgin
Construct that bridge, reroute traffic, and then they'll start working on the next bridge.
The only other current initiative, and this came in after the report, was I did meet with the chairman of the Prince William County Crime not Crime Commission, I apologize, Crime Solvers. And they have never had a relationship with the town of Haymarket, and they are interested in establishing that. So he is working on a draft MOU now, where if we have crimes that, A, we'd want either publicized, or B, we'd want publicized with an associated award, through this MOU, we can capitalize on that through Crime Solvers.
Great.
And it certainly seems like a win-win.
Yeah,
for them and
absolutely.
us.
I'll go first since I have my list. Signs for the holiday event, the highway sign?
We'll have it tomorrow.
Oh, great, okay. And I assume for the holiday event, we'll have like all hands on deck, or pretty much?
No, we'll have 4 officers.
Okay.
And I'll be there along with one of our reserve officers and then the 2 on-duty officers.
Gotcha, okay. And one other question I had, your comment about, so that one call, that was actually where the station is forwarding the call to like a cell phone, and that cell phone, obviously?
No, the person in distress, instead of calling 911, calls our landline.
Right, but
And
did that
so-
transfer to Donna on a cell phone? Or
No,
did
she is talking to the person.
So she was on her phone?
And she has to call 911 on her cell phone
Gotcha.
to make the connection.
Okay, all right.
Not exactly efficient.
Yeah.
Nor safe.
Absolutely, okay. Other questions for the chief?
those shutdowns on 66 will be intermittent, not overnight, completely?
I would have to assume, having had been involved in other projects where they install beams, generally speaking, it takes about 15 minutes to
Right.
set a beam, and then they reopen while they
And let the traffic go and then
do
shut
that
it
bit
down.
of work that's associated with securing the beam, then you shut it down for another 15
Okay,
minutes. But
that's what I thought.
intermittent is I'm almost certain is what it's going to be.
Yeah, okay.
Holly? Yeah.
Normally, when I've seen that, it's when the 15-minute closures are when they close it and there's no detour. And what I've seen is that they go through the effort of detouring up and over the ramps. They will do that all night. So I'm not, perhaps the chief can find out when he meets with them if it's going to be.
What we'll do.
Because it takes an effort to do the detour. So
Okay.
I would leave that as we don't know yet.
Okay, and how far into the future do you think it will take to get this one-button transfer for these calls? Is it
I
a
spoke with
complex process, I guess?
I spoke with the commander of Prince William's Public Safety Communications Center, and she has some contact with Verizon, who will ultimately do the work. I have not heard back yet from her.
Okay.
I don't think it will be a lengthy process. My fear is that it will be an expensive process. And from my initial conversations with Chief Hudson, his indications were the reason they don't typically do this is that it is expensive, and they only do it right now with Fairfax County
Okay.
and with Stafford County. is not something they typically do, but he had no idea the volume of calls that we take either. When I described it to him, he said, well, it sounds certainly applicable. That being said, when the numbers come in, I'm not sure why that cost should be borne entirely by the town of Haymarket.
Right, right.
And there may be room, I think, to ask them to either bear the cost of that in total, or at least bear some of the costs.
Is there any opportunity out there to get grant money for that, do you think, or?
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
I'm not excluding that, but I'm not sure there would be.
And I guess I'm missing the obvious, the ability to just hit call transfer and dial 911 and do a three-way call on our PBX isn't an option?
I don't think so. I think given the issues that we have with these phones over here, I'm being told that we can't transfer anything.
Really? Okay.
I know today's an excellent example where with the rain, the lines are showing being active when they're not active. That phone system has significant issues.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sounds like a budget wish list.
Well, yeah. Okay. Other questions for Chief?
Chief, anything further on body cams?
Yes. And I know that we had talked in your committee about putting together a series of equipment requests that are tiered by priority, and certainly body cameras would be at the top of that. And I have a series of quotes from one major manufacturer, and I am in the process. I'm in a webinar on Wednesday with Motorola to look at their product and see what the costs associated are with that. I guess no big surprise, certainly with the cameras that TASER provides. It's an expensive proposition, and it's not the cameras. It's the management of data that costs a lot. And by their calculations, I'm able to give them the number of officers we have, to schedule what they think a typical rate of recording would be over a 12-hour shift. And they're suggesting first year you would want to contract between a terabyte and a terabyte and half of data. And that becomes expensive. Yeah, and it precludes us, I think, too, buying our own server and trying to do it internally. And so you start looking at cloud solutions like Evidence.com, and that's where the cost is. And so I would like to see, again, one more option from a major reputable manufacturer like Motorola, and then we can sit down and look at what these cost breakdowns are and find an option that works for us.
Presently, is there any recording from the vehicles?
Does it what?
Is there any recording at all?
The in-cruiser cameras that we have right now are failing at a regular rate. The two of them now are so bad that we're just going to take them out. We have one functioning camera left that's working pretty well in the newest of the Dodge Chargers. Beyond that, they again are becoming almost useless.
Because looking at the amount of traffic stops involving drugs, we do have to be proactive in looking after our officers and their safety. So, the body cams, it's good, but if an officer makes a stop, I know he probably they don't run the tag at that point in time. I've gone on, I think 2 weeks ago I went on a ride along, and I don't know if they would run the tag immediately before they get out, or?
Well, the tag is called in before they get out.
Okay.
So there's a record of the tag. And depending on your communications personnel, they may or may not preemptively run the tag, or the officer may run it himself on the computer. But the tag is recorded. Again, the body cameras are going to do a good job in terms of capturing what is going on a traffic stop. I'm a little bit reticent about advocating both body cameras and in-cruiser cameras, because the in-cruiser cameras per unit are incredibly expensive. The cheap ones are about $4,500 up to about $7,000 per unit. And over the years, I've had significant exposure to them. I have not seen a unit yet that survives the rigors of a cruiser. It is a hostile environment for electronics. I mean, between the heat and the cold and the jostling around, I don't care how robust they make in cruiser cameras, invariably they fail, and that's what we're seeing now. And so, I mean, there's a cost point, and I don't, again, to me, it'd be difficult to expend a lot of money on body cameras and then also expend a lot of money on in-cruiser cameras. I'm not sure that's...
Yeah, it's probably not wise in doing both of them. There is a small town in Virginia that just got a $25,000 grant to test some body cams. I just don't know how we could get on that list.
We always are looking for grant opportunities on body cameras. And the manufacturers themselves will do a lot of that work for you because they're interested in selling their product, and they will point you in the right direction, which TASER was very good about doing. But again, I don't want to rest my laurels on one vendor. I'd rather look at least one other really reputable manufacturer. And if you don't realize, by the way, there are 1,000 companies out there selling body-worn cameras now because it's a hot ticket item. Everybody wants them. So people are jumping into the market with names I've never seen ever. And so I'm leery of a company that I don't recognize. And companies like TASER or Motorola, I feel very comfortable with. I'm very comfortable with the fact, for instance, that TASER will send you a unit to test and evaluate for as long as you want. And in my initial meetings with them, they already gave me account access into evidence.com so I can go in there and take a look. And once they send us the camera, then we will treat it just as if we have bought their cameras, and we will upload data into an account, see how we manipulate it, what we can do with it, and generally speaking, how smooth and efficient their systems are. And so, you know, that's what I want in a vendor. And those are the sorts of things that say, okay, they're going to provide a good product.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief? If not, we'll move on.
Could I make a
Oh,
comment
absolutely.
on that?
Oh, absolutely.
I think the Chief touched on the key issues there, which is the storage and the retention period, which dovetails with the storage issue. My associate, Brett Callahan, who does y'all's prosecutions, did a chart of the retention periods for all of police records, and it ranges from nothing to 100 years, depending on what's on the videotape. So the way that the law is currently structured, you'd almost have to have a second officer, when the first officer comes off shift, a second officer watching the video and then shunting little bits of video into different storage categories or tagging them with how long they have to be retained. So there's clearly an untenable situation. What VML is doing is they're proposing, they're lobbying the General Assembly to pass at this coming January session some kind of comprehensive body-worn camera law that will address the retention periods as well as just the general specifications of what do we want on these things. And you know, ideally, we would have even a model policy that would say under what circumstances is a police officer allowed to turn it off because they have to be able to turn them off, and under what circumstances are they required to keep them on. So there's a technical requirement, there's some legal requirements, there's a lot of data storage issues. It's just a logistical mess at the moment that only the General Assembly really has the power to fix, in my estimation. So I think it's good that we're looking at these, but until the General Assembly acts at the coming session, it's going to be very difficult to know what's the permanent solution to that.
And thankfully, because each one of our officers, for instance, does carry an iPhone, some of the solutions or some of the issues that Martin was talking about, technology will give us an easy solution, particularly with categorizing data. And again, the system that I looked at most closely allows the officer who has recorded to then instantly pull that recording up on his iPhone and then properly categorize it. And so there is some exploitation of smartphones that you're seeing across the industry, and it's starting to solve some of those problems. I will, just one additional point of information. I am meeting with the program coordinator this Wednesday for Prince William County Police Department. And they, I think rightfully so, want to make sure that all these issues that Martin has just talked about are being handled the same way within the county. And some of them are going to be sort of weighty issues in terms of retention rates. Some of them are going to be practical issues, such as how do you present video in court, and they want to make sure that we are all doing it the same way. And they are more than willing to sort of cut the path, so to speak, and that will be part of what we discuss when we meet on Wednesday.
I don't know about Dumfries or Quantico, but Occoquan, which has a very small police department, is just planning to do whatever Prince William does. They're just going to piggyback with the county.
Okay. And the private recording is admissible?
Yes, and I think the greater issue, I don't know. I sweat too much what we bring into court. The greater issue is going to be how do we address FOIA requests, and that's a painful topic. And at what lengths do you have to go to protect people's identities, but provide these FOIA requests? And if there's going to be a torturous process in adopting a policy, that's going to be, I think, the torturous part of it. How do we answer inevitable FOIA requests?
Let me ask a stupid question. So where is all the data being stored right now? For any of these cameras, wherever you are?
Most of them.
I had thought it might have been on a loop or something like that. We have event recorders that we use, but
In large agencies, for instance, my former agency, the data is stored in the county's Department of Information Technology servers.
High security.
They have servers that are big enough that they can store terabytes of data, and those particular systems, as a cruiser hits a hotspot within the county, it wirelessly uploads that data on the go.
Okay.
And so they never have to mess with it. Other jurisdictions who may or may not, I guess, be able to afford servers of that size and complexity, they will upload into a cloud-based system, which is what I would anticipate we would do.
Right. Well, this sounds like an interesting segue into the legislative agenda. I don't know if that's going to be on your list, Martin, relative to the agenda.
It certainly could be.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions for Chief?
I just have one.
Sure, okay.
Have you had any complaints about how long it takes to get out of Hunting Path or Blade? I mean, I've noticed in the last 30 days an increase in just being able to get out of some of these neighborhoods. Have you noticed?
I have not received any complaints. My limited perspective goes back to September 14th.
Right.
And I find that all the time. As I drive around town, I can sit there for 5 minutes sometimes trying to get across. It seems to be, and I do see it it does correlate with certain times of the day, but it is very difficult to make left turns.
Right. Okay. I was just curious. Thanks.
Okay.
Is that a complaint?
No, it's not a complaint, it's just an observation. I know getting out of our neighborhood the other day, I sat for probably a good 6-7 minutes just to where I felt safe to get out. I happened to be on Hunting Path this afternoon. It was about 4:15, and I debated long and hard about turning right, going into the bank. And it just seems like it's getting worse. I'm not sure anything we can do about it, but I was just curious. It's like the hot times of the day, it's at least quadrupled to more just to get out of some of these neighborhoods.
Specifically the westbound traffic.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it just seems like that the intersection is it, being able to go straight or take that right. There's not enough lane to take a right to get onto northbound 15.
And I've noticed it too, particularly when there is an incident on 29 in the area of Gainesville, and then everybody exits off and comes west on 55. And that is honestly, that's a nightmare scenario. There's no breaking.
It's so easy now to get off there.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chief. All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Next item, our town manager's report.
Council members, welcome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, why don't we take like a 5-minute? Call our meeting back to order here. Our next item, we're going to skip around here. We're going to go to line item G under the agenda items, the landscaping bond release, Piedmont Tire and Auto.
This is on page 67 of your agenda packet. And this is to release the landscaping bond that was held on the original Piedmont Tire and Auto plan that was done many years ago, 2011. And I did go out and I looked at it. There's some things that recommended replacing. I will say that when the second ice rink is put in, there will be more landscaping replaced down at the bottom. So anything that's already been identified in that plan to be replaced, I didn't even consider. And I did recommend releasing the landscaping bond for the Piedmont Tire and Auto site.
Okay. That one item or one area, I'm not sure if it's part of the bond release, but there was one like trip hazard where they dug something in their front yard and the dirt is sitting over on the side. It's now grown to grass, but you've got like about 1.5 feet deep right in the front of the. Yeah, so if you could just maybe identify that if you have not seen that.
And that's going to smooth it out.
Yeah, just take the dirt that's to the left, goes there. The grass is already there.
Okay.
But,
That's right. Last time I spoke with John Philippone, who's the manager there. He claims he didn't dig the hole, but he's more than happy to fill it in. So
yeah,
we'll
it's
work it
in his property, maybe. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But I don't want to pay
Right.
an employee to go out and put it.
All right.
And then the second item is on page 69, the caboose. I just want to let you know, I'll give you the update of the cost analysis on Monday.
Okay. Great.
Sir?
Yes.
Back up to the Piedmont.
Yes.
So is it, are we saying release?
Yes.
Yeah.
I recommend
Proof.
bond release.
Right.
This was for Piedmont Tire and Auto. This is the upper site. It did cover some of the landscaping on the side, but when they go to build the second construction rink, she will have to do a landscaping bond at that time for some additional replacements down at the bottom.
Yeah, I understand that. So the whole has nothing to do with the release.
Yeah, the hole's just bringing it to their awareness, and hopefully they'll fill it in. Yeah.
Sorry if I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Get your shovel
Okay.
and your rake out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that takes care of your last two items. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Rashawn, why don't we go over your items here to get you out of here as well?
Yes, there's a Christmas tree waiting to be decorated. So, the only other thing I had was the planning consultant services. I think this is I'm familiar with Darren Coffey and his work through the profession I'm in. And I would recommend going with the approach that Brian has outlined. This is an aggressive schedule to update our zoning ordinance and our subdivision ordinance. And again, all those ETAs we had to put forward for Sheets and Chick-fil-A tonight is indicative of we just have an antiquated ordinance. And I believe he will do a good job of bringing us up to date and make it a more user-friendly document. Sure.
Essentially, it's you can find the recommendation on page 59 of your packet. Essentially what the deal is if we continue along the current phased approach that we have, we're probably not looking at adopting a rewrite of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance until probably sometime in 2017, which would make it a 2-year process. By combining phase 1 and phase 2, we can get both the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance completely rewritten within this fiscal year. Mr. Coffey, the Berkeley Group, feels confident that they can meet that. That means we're adopting it shortly after that, the new fiscal year. So it will be adopted in 2016, provided going through the public process, of course, on both these adoptions. What this allows us to do from a budgeting standpoint, then we then can factor into, hopefully, our upcoming fiscal budget for 2016, 2017, the rewrite of the comprehensive plan, which is also out there. The issue we run into is really our toolbox, the tools in the toolbox, and as Marchant just mentioned, this is a perfect example. We're having a hard time allowing businesses to go in where we really want businesses to go into. Sheets is having to come back to almost essentially get a special use permit to be able to do a gas station, which is a use they currently already do. So it's one of those things where this is what we're constantly bumping into, and I think it's also a cost issue as well with staff, because every time we have to do these ZTAs, this prolongs the whole process for everybody involved, for our appointed committees, for our elected officials, for staff to put the paperwork and everything together. So it's one of those things where we would come back to you all with a budget amendment, but what we'd like to do is go ahead and start moving forward with getting this entire thing done. We have ran this through both Finance Committee, and I have also spoke to the Chairman of the Planning Commission, Councilman Cottle, as well.
Okay.
This is really the task we hired the consultant for. It's just a matter of accelerating that review.
Okay.
A lot of money.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any questions on that one.
Any questions? Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
The only thing I may have, jumping down to VRE updates. Harover? Jumping to Harover?
Harover.
Harover? Okay. What do I need to do with Harover?
Well, Marchant, really what more the issue with Harover is making sure we're getting the appropriate applications in. So I wanted you to be here for that. We have received an evaluation from our attorney saying that this would fall under the process, and we would need to probably go through a public hearing to do any kind of advertisement and sale of property. It would also require a certificate of appropriateness as well from our ARB, as well as we would have to have a 3/4 vote to allow the sale. Now, the sale could be for a very nominal amount if we wanted to preserve it by having it relocated off the property. But nevertheless, we would need to schedule that public hearing in the coming council meetings. Furthermore, we also will, Marchant will start getting the COA application together for the upcoming December ARB meeting.
Okay.
Is that?
Right, so I guess the order of operation is, do you want to hold the hearing first and then submit your certificate of appropriateness, or do you want to have them concurrent? The ARB would probably want to know the details of the sale and that exercise before you put an application together, so.
Right.
Now, for the sale, is it advertising a price, or it simply say we intend to, do we have to do an appraisal of the property? Do we have to put a dollar value on it, or?
That's where I guess I'd look for a legal, I think the intent for the council was that night for, it would be like $1 in hand. I mean, we were looking if we could get anything for the property to, instead of demo it.
Is it preservation by relocation?
Right, exactly. That was our first intention for that.
Right, and that's certainly something that you could do. I mean, obviously, you could try to get, something other than a nominal price for it, but considering that it's going to cost in the tens of thousands of dollars to move it, depending on where they move it to, it's not likely to attract very many bids. A similar, very nice bungalow directly across from the old courthouse in Manassas was on the market at $1. You buy it, you move it, and nobody bought it, so it was ultimately demolished. So, there's no guarantee, of course, that anybody would be interested in buying it, but at least that way, by offering it for sale at a nominal price to somebody who's willing to move it, you demonstrate that you are interested and serious about historic preservation, and that if somebody is willing to take it, they can have it. So that's the idea behind that.
So how long do you have to advertise for? Is there a typical for, like, what did they do in Manassas?
That was for 1 year.
They advertised it for 1 year?
Advertised it for 1 year.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was on the market, it was available for sale for a longer period of that before it was ultimately demolished.
Yeah.
By law, what's the minimum?
Yeah.
Well, what's the minimum? It's set out in the statute. The minimum is 6 months, I think. Is that right, Marchant?
That sounds right.
I'd have to look at the statute again, but I think there's a 6-month period.
So,
when I say that minimum, that is to have the owner have the right to demolish it by right. You understand what I'm saying? So you have a historic structure, and if you offer to sell it and nobody wants to buy it, then you have the automatic right to demolish that building by right. The other way that you can demolish a historic structure is to get a certificate of appropriateness for it, just straight to the ARB, say, we want a COA to demolish this building. If the ARB says no, the owner can appeal to this body, and this body has the ultimate decision about whether to issue the COA for demolition.
I have a question. Could we advertise it for a couple months and see if anybody wants to salvage it and then go to the demolition? I mean, at least, I'm not saying do it for a year. I'm just saying, put it out there.
Or could they run in tandem?
What do you mean?
Pardon me? Yeah, like a parallel effort, yeah. In other words, you go ahead and move forward with the ARB for the certificate and, for a period of 30 days or something like that.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think when we had the council meeting, the work session, I think you all said 3 months would be, in a situation like this, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get it out as much of a national possibility as opposed to just using local resources. But at the same time, I think you could go to the ARB with a certificate of appropriateness application, starting the process that would basically say, here's what we would like to do. I mean, the biggest thing with any kind of COA, you want a plan. ARB wants to see what's the plan, because what came out of that last meeting was, let's see if we can preserve it by relocating it. If we can't, let's see what we can salvage off to utilize elsewhere on the property, and then if none of those options work, or the salvaging would work, but then we would then take it down. 3 months, you're still talking about you're only in February, March at that point anyway. But that would just be one option that you all could do. But I think you could start the process. I mean, and the other thing is, Martin, I'd have to defer to you with when we talk about historic structures. Are we talking about what are they called when they're recognized historic structures?
Contributing resources.
Contributing resource, or on the National Historic Register.
I would have to look at your definition of historic structure.
Any building over 50 years old, and the comp plan specifically states it. Mr. Mayor, what I would suggest is first, let's get the master plan adopted. The final plannings are coming to you fairly quickly. Get that in order. We take that to the ARB, say this is the master plan, which involves removing the house from the property, whether it be from demolition, removal, harvesting, but you put in order of priority how you want that building to be taken from the property.
Okay,
And then at the same time you do that, then you go through the sale process to put it up for sale. But you take that entire package to the ARB, give your preference of order of operation, that way you get the COA approved. Just because you get the COA approved doesn't mean you have to tear the building down tomorrow.
Sure.
It says we're going to go ahead and offer it for sale for 6 months. If not, then we'll put out requests to have it removed from the property, and then we'll move on. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, and
No, I was just going to say, why can't we advertise it for sale now? Why do we have to wait?
You don't, you can do them, I guess, did you want to hear the public input on the sale or not before you put a formal application together?
Okay.
So,
You would have to have the public hearing.
So then when's the earliest we can do that?
You have to have the public hearing before you can actually sell it. We could inquire about interest at any time.
Correct.
Well, so an RFQ?
Yeah.
Or something like
So
that, or
you could-
RFP, whatever.
in theory, next month.
In order to ratify the sale, you would have to have the public hearing.
But
Is that what
really-
you're saying, Martin? Okay.
So really, in essence, we could send a COA to the ARB right now for demo, and it wouldn't have to go to any public hearing.
You could put it for demolition, yes. You could send a request. You would want to have your master plan in hand, your final plan in hand. But yes, and you could put it up for sale tomorrow. I guess technically, it would just be a matter of you have to have the hearing before you ratify the sale.
Well, I mean, I think it's prudent to see if we can get some, but I don't want to see this thing drag out for 6 months, a year. We're just wasting time.
So,
Which is why the last comment I made when we had this thing was, let's get rid of the thing. Let's just send in the COA, get it through the ARB, and just move.
I was not a swing vote, but a swing decision on that, but I don't think we had all heard this part of being at least
This is just going to
6 months to a year, that it would have to, maybe that's because
I think
we
they're
were
stuck
getting
on
that.
the wrong ahead.
Yeah.
Marshall.
So you got a couple parallel things happening at the same time. Okay? Let's talk about the COA. Once we get the master plan in hand, that master plan takes the police department from the property, right? We take that to the ARB, and
We have that. I thought we have that.
we have, I showed you the drawing that came
Right.
in, but the master plan is going to be done shortly. So
Right.
we've got to bring it to you and get it adopted.
Okay.
As soon as it's done, take it to the ARB, and I say, ARB, this is a request from the council for this master plan, and the order is to try to sell it. The next would be try to harvest it, and then the third option would be demolish it entirely and take it from the site. And they, do you agree with that approach or not? And they take it through. Then we come back to you and say, council, they've endorsed your approach to the master plan, and at any time we can offer it up for sale. It's that first part, and that would be a parallel process. You have your own COA process that's moving through. At the same time, you could probably put an ad in the paper tomorrow to sell it. You would just have to have your hearing before the sale is finalized. So those would happen concurrently as you're moving forward.
Why couldn't we put it up for sale tomorrow?
That's what we just said.
I'm sorry, that's what I'm saying. The formality of the hearing has
I
to be
know
done.
that's what we're saying, but we're getting back to, I want to see doing, not just talking. We need to, if that's what we're going to do,
Then do
what
it.
are we waiting for?
Can I ask you a
We
question?
just got to get the master plan in and then their direction to put up for sale. Yes, sir.
So do you think you can get this on the next ARB, or are we talking January?
No, why not? It's just the 16th, right?
Well, it's just the 16th. We got to get the plan from
It's not-
Barry.
it's not
Do you-
just the
do you want-
16th.
Do you want me to take a plan to ARB that you haven't seen yet?
Marshawn, can I just add a timeline to what you just said to us? Thank you for that outline, but can I add a timeline? Another 3 weeks before we get the master plan?
No, they have this. That's the reason why
No,
we
I
have
the
it.
graphic.
He has a graphic, he doesn't have the plan.
You need to go through it.
Okay, so
I showed you the graphic. We don't have the entire plan in hand.
so right now, we're looking at a month out. We're looking at getting the plan, everything finalized by January.
For the master plan, yes,
Yes,
sir.
okay, so that's 1 month out,
We
okay?
can get it to the ARB in January. If you look at it, if you look at the master plan in January, endorse it, we can get it to the ARB the same month, and then you can get the ball rolling.
Yes. And all that can concur, and I'd say by the end of this week, we can have an advertisement out on various different historical websites offering it up for sale for, nominal amount, or at, basically.
I'm still a little confused. Why can't the graphic that I've seen go
Because
to
it's
the
not the
ARB?
actual plan. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
a
actually,
drawing.
that's just a.
That's a rendition that you would be presenting, correct?
No, the master plan itself is actually a full narrative document that would look. that would be-
Phasing,
yeah.
budgetary.
It's
all
the
that-
whole
it's the
entire
complete-
report.
Okay.
The issue we would have is having that come to you all by next week would be impossible, whereas we can bring that to you at your December work session going into the January meeting for adoption of the master plan. Once the master plan is done, then the COA will be ready to go in, and you all have a document that you've adopted that shows that that particular facility is not part of the long-range plan of that
Right.
property.
Okay.
And so that's just the timeline, but that doesn't prohibit us from getting the property out for sale. And where I wasn't sure of is I didn't know if you had to have the public hearing prior to actually advertising it. But if we can advertise it, we can advertise it.
Yeah.
Sir, what directive do we need to give to the town manager and the planner to advertise it for sale?
Advertise it.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Let's get that thing.
Martin, is that it? Okay.
Sounds like it's a consensus of council.
Right.
So without a motion by unanimous consent, you are
Have a directive.
But you have to
directing
give them
staff
an
to.
amount. You have to.
It's
$1, and I'll
One-
sponsor it.
It's $1, subject to council's ultimate approval of any offers. But, basically, you buy it, you move
Where are you
it.
putting it?
I don't know. It's $1. I want to buy it. Let's get rid of this building, man. Let's move it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Councilman Morris, you can't bid on it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's inside.
At the same time, we'll get the master plan to you in January, get it to the ARB in January, and
So if we, just one last question, because I don't want to belabor the point. So we get the plan in January, we submit it to the ARB, they do what they do, it comes back, we take the final vote, we're at February 1, let's say. If we're advertising this now, provided, let's just say we gave it 90 days, we're at the end of April, by May, we could actually do something.
Unless someone buys it.
If someone buys it, it's
Well-
gone before then.
Can I
may
tag
not.
team on that, please? Sir, are we bound by a time period when we advertise it for sale? Do we set the time limit to say that we're offering it for sale for a month, 2 months, or 3 months?
There is the two ways that you can demolish a historic structure. The one is by right, if you've advertised it for the statutory period of time, which is 6 months, it is $1. And the other way is to get a COA. And so if the ARB gives you the certificate of appropriateness, or you on appeal grant yourselves a certificate of appropriateness, which I've seen done on property that you own, then you have the right to demolish it at that point the next day.
Okay. Sir?
I go.
Yes, please.
I just believe that in good faith effort, the historic town of Haymarket should try to get someone to, I'm not saying that if someone doesn't take it, that it's not going to go away.
Right.
But I'm just saying, we should try.
Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't try. I'm just saying try being 3 months, 6 months.
Right. We're looking for more.
I'm just not sure.
Definite time.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I'm just not sure why we're in such a rush. We don't need it down tomorrow. You know, I completely understand and agree with not wanting it to drag on, but I don't think we need to, like, rush around like chickens with our heads cut off trying to get rid of this building that's going to be there, you know, even if we go through all the process, it's going to be there for a while anyway.
But I would disagree. I don't think we are rushing. If we put this thing for sale tomorrow, we don't get the plan until January. We advertise it, let's say, till April. I mean, we're talking 4 months.
You still have to put bids out for someone to come in and actually do the work. You haven't even,
Brian could be working on that tomorrow to send out an RFP for the demo.
Well, the demo itself, Ms. Mayor, is not going to be difficult to get quick bids on. There are folks that will come in and do that, and you can have the demo done in a matter of days. So whenever you are ready to begin your construction on the master plan, or just to clear the site, you know, we get that done. Not with the snap of the fingers, but right quick.
This thing has been divisive in our town, and the quicker we get rid of it, the faster people are going to forget that there were 2 buildings there.
Mr. Insel, you had a comment?
Mr. Mayor, what I'd recommend for the council is give us, rather than keep saying it's going to go out tomorrow, there's sites that we actually want to target to possibly, if we're putting forth our best faith effort to say we would love to see this preserved by relocation, there's sites. Actually, I received even a link from one of our residents who was looking into this and made a recommendation to us. So I have looked into that website. That's something we'll get it up on. We'll put it out in the various sites. What I would say is, just as a caution, we will work to try to get this we will get this advertisement out this week, maybe not tomorrow.
Right.
What we will do is, once the advertisement is drafted, if it pleases council, we'll run it through our attorney just to review it, make sure it meets what we need. We'll get it out there. At the same time, we'll start drafting up the COA. The matter of the master plan, you all adopt the master plan. It is, just Councilman Connell, I just want to make sure you're clear, and for the rest of your colleagues on council, is this is your all's master plan. So it doesn't go to the ARB for approval from the master plan standpoint. What happens is the council will adopt the master plan. That will come to you all at the work session for you to talk about. If there's any last-minute changes, we make those changes before your regular January meeting. At that January meeting, you would adopt it, and that would then prompt Marchant to file the COA on the council's behalf to the ARB with regard to, this is the master plan we've adopted. Obviously, with the master plan, it doesn't show this facility in here. That's not part of the long-range future. This is the process we'd like to go through to arrive at that vision. We would like to offer it up. You all can set the timeline. If you're going for the COA, nothing becomes a time crunch until, 1, you get an offer, or 2, you're ready to demolish it. That's and really what you're doing is you're going for the COA to say, so we don't have to wait 6 months to a year. And so you've got multiple processes going on at the same time, but we are moving forward. So we're showing some progress, but we're also saying we're very cognizant. And I think that puts you all in your best position.
Well said.
In theory, by the end of January, the council can have its entitlements to do what it needs to do on Hanover. The question will be how long you want to leave it up for sale at that point.
And that's up to us.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
The only thing I had, Mr. Mayor, was I attended,
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Something else for,
Yeah, just on the master plan, I assume that you expect that in soon, and just so that it's not us, trying to rush through it, as soon as possible, whenever you guys get it, just send it on to us, even if it's not time for the regular council, the council packet for next month, just so that we have time to kind of comb through it at our leisure. That'd be great.
okay. Rashawn?
Thank you for accommodating me. VRE, most of you have had, there's 5 different committees that I get confused about. But the one that I went to was the local community outreach. There was folks from all the gamut. They had riders there. They had riders of the system.
Was that the one at the school or a different one?
This was one at the community center over at,
Manassas?
what's the water park in Manassas?
Splashdown.
What's the name of that park, though?
Splashdown Park.
No, there's another name for
Yeah, there is.
the historic home that's there. Anyway, they had a community meeting there. We went and spoke with the various groups. Ben Lomond Park, yes, sir. And so what we were asked, there was groups from Piedmont Environmental Council, basically the gamut that has an interest in it. I went and spoke on behalf of the town. I essentially highlighted that we had concerns about facility, rail station placement. Where would the station actually go? There's some limitations putting it in town. If there's an end of rail station, there would be concerns about making sure that the traffic network could support it. We're going through quite a large interchange exercise and those types of things. We'll make sure we don't overwhelm that improvement as soon as it opens. Just kind of relayed that the town's going through a lot of pressure right now. We got Dominion coming in, wanting to put in their power lines. They originally looked at alignment along the railroad. Now they're north of town. Looking at the VRE extension, looking at the road networks, it just basically said we have a lot on our plate right now to consider in terms of what the longevity of the town would be over time. They did mention that they would do 2 to 3 tracks. So we have the track that's there today, and adding a track and possibly 3. A lot of the concern, there was concerns about the environmental impact. There was concern about, not just for me voicing it, but there was concern about, right now, the efficiency of it. You have few stops, so you get in and out of the city faster. What would it mean to put more stops along the line? I'm sorry, I didn't have more notes prepared for it. They ran us through an exercise where we'd like to see stations and at what times would they like run, but it seemed to be kind of the initial kickoff meeting. They had a community meeting the following night. So
you brought to the town's awareness or the town's concerns? Because I don't think we've actually really spoke about any
No, I'm
concerns.
sorry, I didn't. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, yeah,
I
'cause
didn't say I represented on behalf of the town. I said I'm the town planner and zoning administrator. I'm a resident of the town. I said generally, here's what the plans say. Here's generally on its face some concerns that we would. I didn't say concerns. I said logistics of how it would make it work, where a station would lay. I said, what is typically a station? No one really asked what a station was. Well, they have park and ride lots like they have at Manassas and other ones. Some of them, they have surface parking facilities. Some they have parking garage facilities. I said, well, what is it that the type of facility you would look at in Haymarket? And they really didn't say, was it going to be in the town proper or outside the town? So I said, well, just remember the town.
Go ahead.
What did I do?
No, go ahead.
No, keep going.
Keep going, yeah.
You just got to remember, people, that it's a half of a square mile. So just reminding folks that the town proper is much different than larger that we service. So it was more a matter of fact. It wasn't saying yes. It wasn't saying no. It's saying if you want the local kind of eyes on the ground, here's the things that we're dealing with: traffic. We're dealing with a larger area that would service that facility. How do we accommodate a rail station and any sort of surface parking? Most areas down in that area, here's some things to consider. We've got the floodplain. We've got some personal residences in town at the Old Carolina crossing, the other crossings at Route 15. So it's a matter of just pointing out, here's some things that are on the ground locally that would need to be part of a larger plan to accommodate rail. It wasn't I felt I presented a good matter of fact, here's some things to realize for most people who've never been to Haymarket at all. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
if I may, just to kind of add to this, one of the things, there are many committees, associated. You're appointed to one of the committees, which is studying policy. I'm appointed to the committee from an executive standpoint. I think there's also a technical advisory committee, which Holly is representing the town. So I would push upon the council to understand that really, from Marshawn's standpoint, he's giving the planning scenarios that go behind the VRE.
Right.
Since then, I've actually spoke to Meredith Judy, who is one of the consultants at Roadside and Hartwell. She has been talking because they did catch actually one of your quotes, and they really want to honor one of your quotes by reaching out to the communities and in and around the HOAs within Haymarket to really kind of get public feedback on their study, so that they can include that into their findings as well. So I did speak with her on Wednesday of last week and everything. They are planning on coming here in January. We strategically picked January, knowing that we've got a lot of stuff going on remainder of this year, to kind of give you an update on where the study is going. They also are reaching currently out to the HOAs. They've reached out to a couple, but they're going to try to get in front of all the HOA boards within town. We did talk about the logistics. Very much what Marshawn actually just alluded to is that a lot of times we think of Haymarket, we realize we're talking about the town, but most people think about a greater area. And so I've actually pointed her in the direction to try to get in touch with some of the HOAs, some of the larger HOAs that are outside the town, because that's a lot of who's going to be lending support. We have talked about, matter of fact, I'll be attending a meeting on the 15th of December, talking about potential station locations. One of the things I think is the misnomer is that you think of a station being a really large facility.
No, they're
it's
not.
actually just a platform and everything. Really what comes with it is it's the parking. And so we are very much working with the consultants to kind of tell them that we feel that this is a very much of the town really, I think, from talking with you all and really kind of representing the town, look at this as an economic development opportunity. There's some logistics that I think Marshawn very aptly pointed out that have to be looked at and has to be part of the greater study. But at the same time, I think this is a tremendous opportunity, and if we really do our work, which is why it goes into revising our zoning ordinances and our subdivision ordinances and getting to that comp plan and saying this is something that we want to look at, these are crucial pieces. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this, but that's where we're at currently with the VRE study. They are reaching out to the HOA, and I've also talked to them and also Dominion Power. Spoke to Travis Cutler last week as well. We are trying to work out another collaborative meeting. This would probably be a separate meeting from a regular council meeting, where we would have both have Dominion Power, VRE, and VDOT come in to kind of talk about how they're working together, and how they're partnering up. So because Haymarket tends to be like this one precipice where everything is ending at right now. The VDOT study for Transform 66 ends in Haymarket. The VRE study is extending out to Haymarket. So I think in Dominion Power, we know what's going on with the transmission line and all the parameters of that brings to the table. I think it's important for us to see, from a council standpoint, but also as the town of Haymarket, how are these organizations actually working together and collaborating, because all of it's ending up here, and I think it's important for us to see that. So that's been something that's been mentioned throughout some of the committee meetings, and see if we could bring that together, where they can talk about their projects, and then talk briefly about how they're working together. So that's what
I got some raised eyebrows. Did I cause some alarm when I?
I'll let Mr. Passanello start.
You want me to start?
Sure.
Well, I know they did the feasibility study in 2009, and a lot of those issues are already out there. So from my perspective, I think we should be doing anything and everything to help mitigate this project, because it is an economic development project for this town and for the surrounding area. So, I mean, the bottom line for me is I think it's going to be a boon to this town. And I would like to see, well, I'm sorry I wasn't at those meetings. I happened to be away, especially the one at the Limestone, the middle school in Gainesville. And I've heard some very disturbing things coming out of that, very negative, and frankly, I don't understand the negativity. Yes, there are issues, maybe environmental, vibration, noise, all of those issues that you deal with in an EIS. But we should be looking at ways to mitigate those, be part of the solution and not the problem. Seems to be too many issues where we're part of the problem, not part of the solution. So that's my view on that. Just to bring everybody else up to date, I attended the technical, what was it, the technical or the policy committee for the mayor who couldn't make it, so I went. And I didn't hear anything negative about the project relative to capital costs. The capital costs, everybody believes will be there. What I did hear was the operating costs, and that's going to be a challenge for the county. And frankly, I don't know where that puts us, but we need to be vigilant about that. So the operating costs are going to be a big challenge in the future to kind of help offset the incremental increase of the operating between Manassas and Haymarket. So that's on the policy side.
Okay. Yep. Councilman Cottle.
To me, the environmental part is how many more cars are we going to put on 66? And as far as mass transit, I think it's way overdue for this end of the county. And looking at property values where the Silver Line's being built along the Dulles corridor, it's booming over there. So for the citizens, for just getting in and out of D.C. and property, I think we should do everything in our power. Obviously, there's things to overcome, but I think anything we can do to push that along is going to benefit the town. Because I'd rather have parking lots in here somewhere than sitting in parking lots out there trying to get to work. So, and I understand we don't, I don't have all the knowledge some of the other people do, but I just know that we need mass transit out here. And Metro's not going to be in our lifetime, but maybe the VRE could be.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Any other comments or thoughts?
Nothing further?
Okay. Ms. Edwards?
I would like to see that we put a big information out to the residents to let them know that VRE is coming to discuss this at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
what I meant.
yeah.
I didn't mean like next week, but the next meeting, the next cycle, that they're going to be here. I mean, to see, put feelers out there, see what the residents have to say about this. I know that there was a lot of input in the last, but, there's been turnover in residents, and just to see how the residents feel about it coming out this far.
I think that's what the manager is alluding to, where they're being proactive and reaching out instead of wanting just the HOAs to come into the meetings. They're reaching out.
This would be a separate meeting aside for HOAs.
Right.
No, I know, but they're coming to our meetings, so if the residents want to have a forum to hear what's going to, their plan is, they should come to the next meeting.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure how much they can share with us, though, because I don't think they're going to be ready with a lot of analyses.
I think the way they're doing it is better. The way that VRE is doing it is much better, going out into the communities and reaching out to the communities, because how many people show up to these meetings. Look how much we advertised with the 66 and the power lines. It was an external body that pushed the gathering of the people for the burying the lines. It wasn't in the town. It was an external force. It was Somerset. Somerset pushed it. We had a couple of guys on our team that did it. We had meetings that went out, but majority of it was pushed by outside of the town of Haymarket. So I think what they're doing is good in reaching out to the community.
This is going to have a direct effect on the residents of this town.
And the residents will be communicated to the way that we've always done it, and we hope and pray that they come out.
Does anyone have an objection to putting it on the website, that it's going to be?
Absolutely
No,
not.
no,
Well,
not
by
at
the
all.
way, just to share, in a conversation with Doug Allen at that policy committee meeting, he's making it available for us, whether it's council, staff, citizens from the town, to take a free ride out of Broad Run Station to Manassas, so people can get a better understanding of what it's like. I think there's a misconception of what this is all about. One of the things I've heard that is absolutely ridiculous in my mind is that it's going to bring crime. Well, that's all I'm going to say about that.
I just want to make it clear that because I got some looks of concern, that my efforts there were simply, this is the lay of the land. Did you know that this is one of Dominion's alternative routes, was along the same corridor as the VRE? staff seemed to know that, but a lot of the people, a lot of the other stakeholders didn't seem to know that. Did you know we're only a square mile? Even some of the county staff doesn't realize that. So my role there was more of a matter of fact.
Awareness.
Here's what's out there. You know, I even went so far as to say, talked about the quiet zone. People had questions about noise. We said, well, did you know the town's already looking at doing a quiet zone which extends beyond the limits of the town? All those types of things which were useful information for them to look at. And then the only thing I said which was heady was the railroads are forgotten history. The metro is a new technology. It seems like we're seeing this resurgence of going back to railroads. We're a railroad town. That's our background. That's our history. So the fact that we're wanting to capitalize on that forgotten history is done right. I think it's a good thing. So I just want to make sure that people weren't uncomfortable that I was somehow taking a position on it.
Personally, I don't think so, and I don't think you went out to represent us. I think you went out to represent the town in general, you know, of which you're a resident. So, I mean, that's good, solid conversations to have with them. So.
And I gather all of this is going to was what's going to come up with the final plan that the council will then have to take an official position on. So this is by no means the end of the conversation.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I know Green Hill was waiting till after the first meeting, I think of the 10th. So they're working to schedule, it probably will be at least this type of forum here, because we couldn't hold that many people, I believe, in our own clubhouse. But, okay.
Thanks for accommodating.
Yes, not a problem.
Thanks, Marshall. I think so. It's 8 o'clock.
Let's see if we can make some sense out of what's left here on our agenda items. Going down here.
Page number, sir, please.
So I think we have not touched on item number C, which is page 54, legislative agenda, the General Assembly. So, Mr. Henshaw, did you want to add anything to?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if I can add really anything else more than what I've put in the report without, I'm afraid, many of the waters. Essentially, what this is this a draft agenda? We have in working with our colleagues throughout Northern Virginia through the Town Association of Northern Virginia, we understand this is a fairly common practice. Most of the larger jurisdictions typically do this. We think we should also get involved. A lot of the legislative acts do affect us in some way, shape, or form. What we hope to do is really to use this as the first stepping stone to build into something to be a little bit more attentive to what are we bumping up against when it comes to actual legislation. When I inquired about this with our town attorney, Mr. Grimm, he had one suggestion. He's also worked with the town of Herndon, who was working on an initiative to waive advertisement requirements. And we're kind of joining in. Now, that one wasn't in here, but we will be a part of that, I believe. Martin, I don't know if you want to comment towards that, do that.
Yeah, that's something that I would recommend. There's a provision that's basically a giveaway to the newspaper industry that says that you have to put all your legal ads in a newspaper, which perfectly made sense 100 years ago when every town had its own newspaper, but it doesn't make any sense anymore. Nobody reads the newspaper for the legal ads. So people look for those online. And so the legislative agenda that is being put forward by the towns of Northern Virginia is to have, if you don't have a local newspaper, then in your town in Planning Region District 8, that you could then put your ads on the web instead of in a newspaper. So this is a modest first step. I think it doesn't affect Leesburg, and it doesn't affect one other town in Northern Virginia because they actually do have newspapers published in their corporate limits, but it would affect the town of Haymarket, and you all could then save a few $100 every year, which in your budget is, not negligible. So that's one thing. And the only other thing I would add to this would be on your item 10, packet page 57, support for the VML legislative policy statement. Maybe we could just include a copy of that for the benefit of council members and the public as to what that entails, so that when we go to the agenda for next Monday, anybody can just flip the page and see, oh, this is what VML is supporting. And I think there is, and I don't have it in front of me, obviously, but I think there is something about body-worn cameras in that.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Jen, what do we spend a year? Like, if we update our our town plan, like Marchant and Brian talked about, to where we don't have to have all these special SUPs, we have stuff that can cover, streamline it. But currently, like in the past year, what have we spent in advertising for all these SUPs? You have any sense of what we?
Thousands.
So,
We spend a lot of money in legal advertising.
so by this other thing we talked about earlier would help alleviate that. And if we
Absolutely.
supported this, it would save us a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any further comments on this?
I'm looking at item 2. The town attorney suggested, in towns, no tax shall be imposed except by a 2/3 vote of the council members. And it continues, this provision takes away from the voters of Virginia's towns the ability to set their own tax rates the same way every other locality does, by a majority of the locality's elected representative. Could you expound on that for me, please, sir?
Certainly, sir. Cities and counties have a requirement that they set a tax rate each year by a majority of the members elected. So in Prince William County, with 8 members of the Board of Supervisors, it requires 5 affirmative votes. Simple majority as opposed to a supermajority. The 1427G, and I don't know the history of this provision when it was added to the Virginia Code, but it does require a 2/3 vote in towns. So that's, as I indicated in the draft language here, it basically comes pre-vetoed, because if it were to be vetoed, you could repass it by a 2/3 majority.
I was just thinking, is there anything relative to DVP legislation? Because I remember, I think it was Senator Black or maybe Marshall, they submitted some bills, and it went nowhere in committee. I just wonder if we should reinforce that again with them, if they were interested in reintroducing any bills that could put some impediments in the way of DVP.
Yeah, that's always a tough one for the General Assembly to deal with. And the bills tend to get watered down. I mean, for example, you could have a special taxing district to put new power lines underground, but then the burden would be shifted from DVP. DVP wouldn't be paying for that cost. The burden would be shifted to the people who are in the district that you set up. So that's the kind of legislation that you tend to see dealing with DVP. The thing about DVP is they've got a guaranteed return to shareholders. And so anytime the General Assembly does something that eats into their bottom line, they're just going to jack up the rates, and they can't. And the State Corporation Commission has to let them do it. So the question then becomes, and it's a legitimate question, what should be paid for by the ratepayers and what should be paid for by the taxpayers? I think undergrounding the lines is something that the General Assembly certainly could say that should be paid by the ratepayers and not by the taxpayers. But that's not what they've done.
Okay.
So any other thoughts on this? Okay, let's move on here. Looks like we have a consensus for the consent agenda. Okay. I think we're on to item number E, our committee proposal. And we're on page 61.
Was letter D, I know we kind of jumped around, just to clarify, was letter D to go to consent? I know there's
Oh,
another-
planning consultant, that's right. We had Marchant speak on it. This would be the $30,000 to basically clean some things.
Right.
Yep.
Page number?
That would have been back on page 59.
Yes.
Yeah, we did. We just wanted to make sure. Looking for whether or not to put it to the
I would
consent.
support it on consent, but does it need to be voted on separately?
Yes. Well, basically, you're authorized, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
you
you
all
can
do
consent it.
Okay.
and stuff. We'd have to come back with the actual amendment, but what this does is this authorizes me to say, go ahead and go forward, and we'll bring the amendment to you at the next meeting.
Yep. Okay.
Just for clarification, what we'd like to do is if we're going to be making any other additional amendments, we'd like to the budget, we'd like to do that all in one time as opposed to doing one time each month or something.
Okay, our committee proposal. Thoughts on this? We take the town manager's recommendation?
Mr. Member, can I make a couple comments
Sure.
on that?
Okay.
One place that I've seen the committee system work pretty well is in Culpeper. They have, everything that goes to council goes to a committee first, and oftentimes members of the council who are not on the committee will attend the committee anyway. So they just go ahead and advertise it as a special council meeting, but the only actual action items are the committee's action items. And so they have a chance to hash out any issues or concerns that they have, sort of like you do at your work session, but in a smaller setting. And then everything comes to the town council. A lot of it comes on consent, but then what is remaining, they already know where the votes are going to fall on that pretty much. So they tend to have pretty crisp council meetings. They go by in half an hour. So that's one advantage. Of course, the downside to that is that more of it's happening at a committee meeting where the citizens, in order to see it, would have to come out to that physical location rather than it being televised. But I would hold that up as an example of where the committee system seems to be working pretty well.
So we do advertise. We do, the committees are open for all the council. Unfortunately, I think it's during the daytime hours where a lot of us not available to meet with them. Of course, the downside is that we have one or two members of council, but yet we might not have the consensus of that's the way the council would want to put forth something. Yes, we do take the recommendation, but it's 2 out of 6 or 7 that we are getting the opinions of.
Mayor, can I add something
Sure.
on that? Because that's very directly relevant to, I think, why the Culpeper model has worked. So they have a 9-member council, and all the committees are 4.
Oh, so, okay.
Which
If you did have the majority of the council, or at least more than 2.
Yeah.
But then, there again, how involved do we, with our time?
Again, it's during the day when,
Yeah.
Well,
during
Mr.
working hours. so-
With
Right.
regard to those hours are always subject for change. If you look at the recommendation that I put in, what I'm basically recommending is there's one committee that I think really stands that needs to meet monthly. I think Finance Committee needs to meet monthly.
Yeah.
However, I think it would be good involvement. You could have these on rotations. You could have council members on rotations. That's not something I mentioned in the report, but that is something you could do to make sure everybody's getting a chance to do it, to be involved. But I would recommend that if you keep the Finance Committee, that we keep the committee system. There's a couple of committees I think you could actually, the mayor, I'm recommending that you dissolve those because staff pretty much does handle a lot of the events. Now, with that being said, council members certainly could be involved in all the committee meetings. Or you come at your leisure, and as long as we know, probably what we do is we just make sure it's in general advertisement that all meetings are open to the public. I mean, even if the staff's meeting, what we do is still open to public, really, in essence. There's just no legal requirement to advertise that, per se. But what I was going to say is like the events committee, the public safety committee. I think there's a big important part to the public safety committee, but so far we haven't had any issues that really drive action up. Now there could be some in the future with regard to deliberating all the things about what are we going to do with body cameras. But those are things that we could do in a special circumstance. You wouldn't have to necessarily have to do that on a regular basis. The only other two committees I know of are the public facilities and personnel. And what I'm recommending is let's draw back on everybody's time. I hear all the council members. I will be open and honest with you as well. It's a lot of draw on staff time as well and stuff. I mean, the committees was an idea that was something I've seen the system work well. But we're getting to this work session, and we're going to take a meeting that's lasting 3-4 hours because we're doing the same deliberations in a lot of ways. Right. And so one of the things I would say is like let's draw those back to a quarterly meeting unless you absolutely need it to meet, but add 2 members to those meetings, and they can be set at a time when it's most convenient. And we can also set in specific rules. We're only going to take on things that are going for action of the council in that time. In those times, and we're going to set a 90-minute meeting limit. And it's going to be the chair to basically make sure we're keeping to that schedule. And one of the things we got with personnel that will be coming up is we're revising the employee handbook. Now, what I've decided to do is to make it easier. I'm going to just steam forward and go ahead and finish it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a copy out to everybody, and I'm going to schedule a meeting that's going to be like late afternoon, and those who can make it, come and make it. If you can't make it, just get me what your comments, or set up a meeting with me personally, and we'll talk about it. I'm going to try to implement any of the changes and everything into it before it comes to the council as a draft for actual decisions. So that's one of the things I'm suggesting. But our attorney, Mr. Graham, does bring up a very good point. The one thing I think works better is if you do have a few more members onto the committee. The idea is for no one to be in the unknown. Okay. We put together reports. We put together the product of a committee that brings to it. The theory was always that you all were working as a council. I think you do work together as a council, but it's one of those things. You're doing your due diligence. And that due diligence is wonderful, but it does lead to very lengthy meetings. Right. And so I think this is a recommendation that says let's not just throw it all out yet. Because I tell you, we've done the liaison thing, where it has its merits, and even with some of these committees, if you dissolve it, I think it might not be a bad idea to appoint a liaison from the council. But what has proven is that also doesn't work. You're going to still deliberate the same amount over here, and still going to be talking lengthy meetings. I think the point is if we're not making progress in the meetings, let's figure out how to make the meetings more productive, or the committees more productive that we need. And at the same time, that might save us some time when we get here. And once again, everything that we do is open to the public. And if we need to reschedule them and make them late afternoon, then that's what we'll do.
So if there's no immediate comments, what I would suggest maybe, Brian, we get together and we put this on a graph to show our calendar, to show what it would look like, Go ahead, sir.
From the perspective of the Personnel Committee, I don't know that it needs to remain a committee. I think that it would function pretty much the same if it were just a special meeting and there were time limits and if you can't make it, then you can't make it. But I don't know that it necessarily needs to remain a committee, especially if it's only going to meet quarterly. I don't think. I don't know. That's just my perspective on it. And Joe, if you want to chime in, you can.
Yeah, actually, I think I recommended that it could be more of an ad hoc type of nature. I don't necessarily think we need. I mean, we front-loaded, I guess, to get the employee handbook done. But then after that, what's the real need? Unless something comes up.
We had a lot of things going on. I mean, we had the hiring process. We had a lot of.
The whole thing about the committees, in my view, they're very beneficial, especially for new council members. It was a real learning experience and a learning tool. Is the value still there for that? I'm not necessarily sure it is. And I agree with Brian, especially on the finance side, where I think we need to have more folks involved. It's very important because that is our bread and butter. as well as the public facilities to a certain extent, or, public facilities. I'm very confident that the public safety committees, we're in good hands. That's my opinion. We're in excellent hands, so I'm not even...
That doesn't preclude them from meeting.
Yes, on an ad
and-
hoc basis.
Yeah,
All the other,
they,
when needed, you have that. That's what ad hoc is. You don't need to have a regular standing. When issues arise, then, we have our meeting.
Sir, I chair two of these subcommittees, and for the Public Facilities Committee, we started meeting every month, and after maybe 3 or 4 meetings, we realized that we were just rehashing things over and over again, and we actually cut it back to quarterly. So I agree with the recommendation. For the Public Safety Committee, I do agree with appointing the liaison, but I think we should have a stand-in every 6-month meeting, mostly because the people that come to these meetings are the fire chiefs, the building inspector. These are individuals who are part of the local, not just the police department. These are, we stretched it. We went outside of the town limits, and we got these other officials to be a part of it. And I think it would be good if they knew way ahead in advance. And it could be in the case of the ad hoc style, or it could be a stand-in every 6 months in doing it.
Or we could let the manager and the chief actually have that schedule, let them schedule the meetings, let them advise us that, hey, we're going to have a public safety meeting if the council would like to attend. That way, it's,
Seems much easier.
and they might have a different schedule. I mean, the chief might be looking at things that he might need, every
Leading
month.
up to a major event.
Yeah, right. So I think if we look at it that perspective, we'll let them do their part, and we can be a part of it if we'd like to, versus us.
One further comment, if I
Sure.
may. Just something that could make the actual work session and council meetings go a little bit more smoothly is if we do actually be intentional about submitting our questions to Brian or whomever before the meeting in question, so that at least, if there's some question that doesn't need to be spun around and around in the merry-go-round, they can just give you the answer right there. And then if it's something that's, worthwhile to bring up in front of the whole council, then they're aware and they can say, also this. That, I think that, and I almost did it today and just ran out of time. So I'm as much at fault, but it would be something that would allow us to just streamline things just that much more.
Yeah, so perhaps after getting the packet, then to make the phone calls, talk to Sherry if there was a particular question. There again, if it's something that's that takes the whole council to be aware of, then obviously. But if they're just general questions,
Don't you think that, I don't like long meetings any more than the next person. We're all busy people, but to me, the time to hash it out is a work session. The work sessions, I don't have so much problem like tonight. It's getting late, but to me, when we hit the regular scheduled meeting, they should go pretty quickly, provided we've done our work and
Sure. And I think that we could just, in the work sessions, just, clean up that little gap where we are maybe talking about things that could have more easily been answered, or if they're prepared, they can give us an answer more clearly or more easily.
Most of the questions that come up, though, come up when after someone else may have asked it. It's a follow-up thing, and what Matt is saying is that this is the time to hash these things out, because our next meeting we're voting on it.
Right. If it is, I think there's the distinction, whether or not it's just more specific questions versus we're dealing with the subject at hand, which definitely needs the input. And you're right, it's your question that comes to a question for me to then ask, so that is the time.
And I'm not trying to cut out the deliberative process. I understand the need for that, and just, it was just a thought that came to my mind that could help us.
No, actually, it's a good idea. I've done that, not religiously, but I've done it, and I think it's somewhat helped smooth out, at least my questions, getting some answers, and at least they were prepared for it. But when it comes to the deliberative process, I think it's a balance.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And, we have, sometimes you have to have these discussions out there, and that's what transparency is all about, right? And so, you just have to make sure you're on point when you're having that deliberation.
Sir, because sometimes it's not for us. Sometimes the answers and the comments is not necessarily for us, but
for anybody who's willing
for the
to
general
listen.
public. In realize, because if not, then we become a group that show up the first Monday of every month, and yes, I vote yes, and then it becomes this routine where, okay, we're just voting on issues. No, we need to discuss these things, and we need to show the times when we don't agree on the same issues. I think it's good dialogue to have, and that's just what work sessions are for. So.
Okay.
Stream writing right along.
So
So then
you're
we-
going to do a graph. Do a graph for the mayor.
Yeah, we're going to get over and draft, and then that
Great,
way.
great recommendations.
Just for clarification, do you want just like kind of a graph of like what would the time commitments be for
I think
for
so. We're going
someone
to
who
put it on the calendar, like we'll do
Okay.
for the next 6 months of what.
if we appoint 2 more people. If you read through the report, one of the things we did, we know finance is probably one that does need to meet.
Yes.
What we're looking for is 1 additional member to that we would officially, I'm recommending that the mayor be officially appointed to finance committee, and then we get 1 additional member. And one of the things, like I did mention, which actually didn't make it to the report but did come to mind, you all also could set up a rotational basis where not everybody has to consistently serve. Maybe you do a 6-month rotation and on that, and then you drop off that one. I mean, I know I look at both Councilwoman Edwards and Councilman Cottle, who served both of them Planning Commission and ARB. It's a lot of time commitment. It is. And to be honest with you, we just want to figure out what's the best thing for you all as well, because obviously what I'm getting at is not only is it a time commitment for you all, it's a time commitment for us. And if we're putting more time into doing committee minutes and committee notes and all, and getting the agendas together, that means less time we're doing on other stuff that we could be out in the community and doing. I think the only other thing, if I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say, one of the things about that's important for the committees is I would suggest, if you haven't got a chance to really dive into it, one of the things I try to break out is kind of what is the difference between committees of council versus committees of an appointed body, like the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is required by state code to only make recommendations. A committee of the council is not making a rubber stamp vote. They are making a recommendation. But the idea is that you all serve together as one body as the council. And so you're looking out for the things that you all have chosen to represent in what you're doing in committee deliberations. Understand that when the committee comes up, that's not a rubber stamp thing that you're just voting yes on, as Councilman Morris alluded to, but it's more of the idea of, here's what we came together thinking. We're looking at the best interests of all the body and what's in the best interest of the town, and this is what we're presenting to you all. We deliberated over this for 90 minutes on Wednesday afternoon, and this is what we recommend and everything. And then you go from there, and of course there can be questions. You're all doing your jobs when there are questions, but I think it's important to understand what that can do is it also at the same time can kind of streamline. And what we're doing is we're putting in the report, this is what happened, and then the minutes of the committee minutes are in your agenda packets. So we're not keeping anything away. It's all for public benefit. It's just what it does is there's sometimes when you need to have some time where you actually got to communicate and figure out exactly what is the best direction. And so I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate you giving me the chance
I
to say
think
that.
one thing that would work too is a simple flow chart. I know in Planning Commission, we spend a ton of time at times in the past thinking we're the decision-making group as opposed to the recommendatory. And we spend a lot of time. So a simple flow chart of who has the final authority on what matter, at least on the PC, would go a long ways to, and I can't speak for Susan over there as far as ARB, but PC, we waste a lot of time on that.
Okay. Moving on. We have our policy special requests, page number 64. And I think the background on that, if we remember, this went to the Finance Committee. First was the Reagan Middle School archers that he gave a presentation. We said we'd get back. We ran this through finance.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're now looking at is this draft policy.
Yeah, the Finance Committee looked at this. We had a couple of minor edits, but overall, we felt it was worthwhile to bring to the council for discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the only thing I'd add for the members of the council, that this would be an internal policy. This is not necessarily, it's public record, but it basically would be an internal policy that we follow on any special funding requests.
Right. I think they kicked around the amount that we set a cap no more than 500 per year per request, right?
Now, thinking about this, if you read the paper, there is no money set aside for this year. We could perhaps find money, I'm sure, one way or another, but certainly for next year's budget, we should certainly think about a line item if this is what we want to do.
So thoughts on that? Start from the left here. Mr. Morse, thumbs up.
Sounds good.
Well, and do you feel like we should, put any monies aside for this year? I think you were looking at coming out of general fund or something like that, like $1,000 or something?
We could do 25, whatever you all feel is appropriate.
Right.
I think for this.
I think all we have is one request that we've had pending for this.
I think we should address the requests for this year, because I think we can find where we could come alongside and support this venture. And as Councilman Passanello said, we could put it in the budget for next year.
Right. Okay. I know, I think Jen had a comment that when they first came here, as far as advertising, I can remember still thinking that you thought, what a great deal. I don't want to paraphrase, but to be able to.
Their advertising commitment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, it's like. would
Like
be
a walking billboard?
Yeah, it would be really good for the town and at a minimal investment. But, go ahead, Mrs. Edwards.
My only thing is, where do we cut it off? Like, who is not going to be?
Well, it comes to the council, so, they
I
do.
know, I'm just,
They do, and.
It's a slippery slope you go down here. You
Right.
give to one organization, and then the next one comes, and then the next one comes.
Well, the good thing is, since I've been on council, I can think of two, maybe requests, if that three, this being the second or third out of so many years. So-
Do we only give to schools that serve our town residents? Do we give to any school that comes to, it's.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good deliberation when they do get presented to us, when these people, if they do come.
Mayor, can I make that one easier?
Sure.
Yeah, you can only give to organizations that provide services to town residents.
Okay.
Well, there you go, that makes sense. And, Mr. Woods, any thoughts?
I support the policy. I would offer one minor edit, strike the word however in the, 1, 2, I guess that's just the third sentence in the first paragraph. There's there's two howevers real close to each other. But that's just my pickiness in wording.
No,
Councilman Woods.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, the 500 cap, I think, is good. And I think we've got enough to worry about in this year's budget that since we didn't put it in there in the beginning, I don't think that we need to go scrounging around for money that we need to scrounge around for something else.
So it would be a no for the current one.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Potter.
I concur with that. I think it should be a line item in the 16-17 budget. It should be a hard cap as a total. Should be, if it's 500, and maybe we carry the current request over to the next budget cycle and say, hey, we're going to support you if that's the will of the council, but it won't be till the next budget. I don't like adding things to a budget, especially when we have a lot on our plate. So I'm for the policy. I just think we should enact it on the next budget cycle.
Councilman Costello.
In thinking about this, certainly going to look at adding a line item to next year's budget, and that'll be in that informational request that Brian submitted to all of us. I think we can find the money in this budget, to be honest with you. I think Chris makes a very good point about going back to the folks that requested of us. We at least owe them a yay or a nay. They've made the effort. They've come to us. So I think we at least should consider that, and if it's for $500, I think we can find the money to do that.
So what we'll do is we'll take this off the consent, we'll put this and we'll put a recommendation with the changes there, and we'll see how the vote goes for Monday.
What was the process, or what was the process for them coming in and making a request of us?
What was the process? Well, we had asked them, I think, they came twice, I believe.
So what was the background? They excelled? They did good?
Yeah, we're not even,
So
local.
here's a school. They excelled. They came in. We presented. We recognized them. We said we would look into it. And now we're saying, no, put it into next year, $500. I think it's wrong.
Well, I think that's the reason why I think it's off the consent, so we'll see if we got a majority vote on it. But that's, you're right, and then they came back after they won the championship, the world championship. I mean, it wasn't even local, state, national, it was world. I mean, it was phenomenal. And as you saw the attendance here, I mean, there was standing room only for these young men and women that are.
We were smiling and congratulating them.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes,
as a
sir.
matter of clarification, I'll make the editing change that was mentioned by Councilman Woods to the policy. You all want the vote on the policy, but as far as I know, there's no other directive to do anything.
No, I would just entertain a motion at that time to see if we.
You wanted to move in.
Right, after adoption of the policy, that
Okay.
too.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
you weren't expecting anything else from staff.
Right.
I'm not saying I disagree with you, but don't we think the person that's looking at the budget every day, Sherry, should have some input about where we're going to come up with this money?
We
I
did.
mean,
We-
500 here, 1,000 there, 1,500 there, especially in light of the meeting we had last week. I mean, it's not like, it's still the townspeople's money. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but we need to make sure we're fiscally prudent.
Right, I think the fact that it went through finance, and they did look at what Sherry's a part of.
Well, only half the finances here. so-
Well, yeah, that's true, yeah. So, well, I think it's good, we'll see how the vote goes for Monday. But I think it at least shows the process, it shows that we went through it, we developed a policy, and, yeah, okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Do you mind if we consent the policy and add an agenda item for consideration of Reagan Archery
Yeah, there you go.
donation?
That would be perfect.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
'cause
Thanks.
we're pretty good with the
Yes.
policy.
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Now we have our next one is a request to the council,
Good suggestion.
and that is on page 70, where we have currently a policy that I think allows, is it 4 times a year, Jen, is that correct, for a waiver?
It's not a written policy,
Oh,
it's
okay.
just sort of what we've done.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, of course, they're asking for 8, 7.
No? Oh, July and August, yeah.
Okay, for 8 times.
One of the reasons we consider the quilters is they did purchase all of the tables that we have here. The initial purchase of those
Right.
was done by the
They
quilters.
they just also did the museum display, too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So, if there's,
Does it inconvenience us in any way?
No, sir.
None at all.
No, sir.
Does it inconvenience any other meetings, any other requests that may come in from HOAs or church groups?
No, sir. This is Saturdays for the quilters.
Is there like a cleaning issue or anything like that? Is there,
No, ma'am.
Maintenance?
yeah.
Doesn't fall on any of the events.
No, sir.
No.
I believe we approved a similar request for the 2015 year. Do you remember how many meetings they requested for that?
For who was that, Chris?
For the Legion?
The same group.
2015.
Not off the top of my head, sir.
Okay.
I mean, this doesn't preclude us from telling them if something does come up and we need the facility, that they can't meet.
Right.
That's correct, and
But
and
they
we
could
will do
Change
that.
their weekend or whatever.
Right, exactly. So there is a mechanism.
That's sort of why I left the motion kind of up to 8 meetings. That way the staff can work with the group.
Are there town residents involved in this organization?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, okay.
You're a quilter? Good for you.
With no objection, we'll put that on the consent agenda. Let's see, we have left here, I think we've spoke about the hair over, the VRE update.
Oh, DVP?
DVP.
Go ahead, Joe.
So,
I've been away.
as we know, they have submitted to the SEC with the second hit to the town of Haymarket. We took the first hit with our double stacking, and now we're going to be looking at them to the north.
They're doubling down.
Doubling down, I think, is the new word for it. Reason why I put this on the agenda, I think, as we've done before, we've put out resolutions when we've made or made known of circumstances that I think this would be another prudent resolution, in my opinion, to have our town attorney draft up that totally unacceptable, to have these overhead lines that actually go through our town limits.
It's too bad we couldn't have a variance or something, or some kind of ordinance that could prohibit them from coming through.
Well,
No.
yeah.
David, you and I discussed, has anybody looked into the fact that the hospital's over there and the
Helicopter.
Yes.
Yes, who did I speak
trauma,
to
it's going to be a
regarding
level 1 trauma center. I mean, that's what it's building towards. Are these lines going to impede? I mean, the helipad is literally on 66. Is that a safety? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, it's an idea.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Do we even know the height of these, how far they're spread? I mean, I've been noticing.
110 to 120 feet high. 110 to 120 feet high.
I mean, it would be nice to come up with a resolution and go see the folks. I can't think Heritage Hunt would be that happy. It's almost like the HOA now has shifted further north. We need to round up some support. I just think it's going to be a killer for property values.
Well, you figure the communities that, obviously now will be looking at their backyards or some of their front
And there's
yards.
as many homes over there, if not more, than was over here.
Right. So, my suggestion would be crafting up, taking what they've submitted and going against that, and making our points that we're not in favor of their preliminary draft, I guess is what they're referring to.
Or the preferred route.
Preferred route, correct, I'm sorry. Yep.
I thought the funniest part about it is that now they say that it's the most direct route, but yet when they came to us, they said the most direct route was along the railroad tracks.
Yeah, I know.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, which is it?
That was their preferred route.
Yeah.
I think that's the direction, sir.
Yeah, so if there's no objection, we'll craft it up, send it around, have everybody's eyes look at it before, for next Monday. Good.
Yeah, and just to Chris's point about Somerset, I spoke with Jim Napoli, the president of Somerset, and on Monday the 7th, we're going to Capitol Hill to talk to Warner staff about the issue, and then hopefully engage Kane's staff as well, the 2 senators, and see if there's any federal kind of machinations or manipulations that we can count on for some help here. So we'll see what happens.
Sir, in lieu
Yes.
of the previous resolution that we made, is there any way there's going to be a conflict?
I think they're all building on each other.
I'm going to pull those
yeah.
absolutely and look to reuse as much of that as I can in terms of the rationale, because I don't think anything's really changed in
Right.
terms
Right.
of the town's perspective on the plans that
Because we did have one resolution, but then we held off on making the second one to wait on their submission.
Right.
Yes?
No, I thought we went ahead and acted. Yeah, we acted.
The one underground.
You did the one that was based on the planning commission's work.
Right.
And then you did a second one.
Underground.
Right.
That was,
Which is consistent with the unified approach.
correct.
Right.
Fully unified approach.
Yep. And I guess the visual aspects, the historical aspect going through the town now, that we,
Is north of 66 still in the town limits?
yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, yep.
Do they need a COA from the ARB?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
it's still going through the town.
A certificate of appropriateness from the ARB.
You know, which
Okay.
time are you looking?
Okay.
Also, there's a portion that actually does cut across the fairgrounds property, and so I have alert, made sure that Mr. Gravett knows.
Yeah, I think
And
he's
he was
been in
working with
contact.
VDOT at that time.
Yep. Yeah,
Sorry.
it comes over.
Yeah, it switches sides and it cuts. So basically, be right out the fifth floor window of our hotel.
Huh?
I don't know for a fact. I'm just saying where the hotel's going. That's about where the line.
Oh, so it's not affecting the helipad?
Yeah,
the
their
helicopter
proposal.
Well, I mean, you have to think they come in
East.
before.
They have.
Have to fly in from that direction.
With regard, one of the things I would say is like it's definitely a concern. I'm sure Novant has to worry about, it, but they have to put safety.
Mhm.
I mean, it would be any airplane. So, but you can
Yeah,
always
but-
throw that into the resolution. I'm not just denying.
No,
I'm just saying I don't
I'm
know if
just
that should be
asking
our
the
number one.
question. No, I just
concern.
asked the question.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I think it's going to go like catty-corner.
It crosses over.
To the south station, and then it goes.
All right, so what do we have left here?
Just before we move on the subject, how could they look at this resolution to move it onto the south side?
Well, I think our stand is underground, and there's no other option, so.
Are you worried about
Retaliation.
Flip.
I don't, in my opinion is that the impacts are so.
There's too many, like the schools, the houses, more than one school.
Understand the process, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry to interrupt, but understand the process. At this point, they've laid out what their preferred alternative is. It's in the hands of the SEC at this point. It's not a matter of they could come back and change it if they really wanted to.
I
So
understand, but the SEC is going to look at our resolution.
correct, and that's the reason why I mean, like, you don't want to throw out everything we got into. I mean, you want our stance has been underground from the beginning, and I think as long as you're not wavering from your stance, that's what the most
And
important
our
thing.
stance has been welcoming, too. We're not in their way as long as they go underground.
That one other thought was putting on them on record for the actual need. Do you remember the third party requesting a third party, what do you would call it? Right, verification that they actually need this. That was very successful in North Carolina, little town. Bottom line is, they pushed for that. They wanted a third party. They had almost 9,000 submissions for comments, 9,000. And at that, it's different down there. It's Pike, I think, but they ended up pulling back the project. They didn't push it. They pulled it off.
Well, didn't they say at one point that what they're building it for pulled out?
Yes and no. I mean, that's
Any meetings?
right. One of the additional buildings, of course, is up in the.
Right. Yes, but Councilman Cowell, they also said that it was needed for future growth or for.
Right.
As it was going to be needed anyway, regardless of that.
Right.
Party that was never.
That was that day.
Named.
Different story, different.
So maybe if that's.
need to ensure
if that's-
that
If that's
underground-
okay, yeah, that it's only underground, and the fact that we're requesting a third-party verification of the actual need, since we already have the double stacking going through the town that's providing the service.
It ruined our historic site anyway.
Yes. Okay.
like I said, double down, or doubling down.
Doubling down.
That should be our mantra.
Okay, the minutes, we'll send any submissions to Jen by, what do you need them by, Wednesday, Thursday?
Wednesday,
corrections?
please. I apologize. The main meeting minutes aren't there. November 2nd's not there.
Okay.
So,
And also, I think we've got finance minutes that need to come over, right?
I was going to address that in my meeting.
Okay, great, okay.
Well, you haven't spoken into it?
No, but we waited till last.
Part of
Okay.
our streamlining effort.
Okay, manager's report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make this actually as brief as I can. Like the mayor mentioned, yes, I know, that's very funny when I say that. I have a little box. I'm going to stay there. It's on you all if we go further. So anyway, I'd like to add the Finance Committee minutes. They'll be included in your packet. What I'd suggest is we just put those under consent minutes, and if you have anything you want to pull off, or if you got any questions, you can certainly ask a member of the Finance Committee or Sherry or myself. Very important. Oh, I know one other thing. I'd like to know if you all would like to have at your next council meeting the discussions for the front elevations for the town center property. We have those complete. ARB did deliberate over them. I've spoke to the chairman, Ken Larson, of the ARB. They had basically several comments that they'd like to render, but one of the things I wanted to do was I think they were asking Mr. Hetzel to come back. My impression, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, is that we'd like to try to get moving, even though we might have to step back and figure out how exactly we're going to move forward. What does that mean? We'd like to keep moving, and I'm fearful that if we have Mr. Hetzel come back, that's going to be one more month. We're getting really into the details, which are very important, and the ARB made some very important statements, but what I've asked is of the ARB chair, and I apologize I haven't gotten this out to the rest of the ARB, is I'd like to take it, bring this to council, let you all see what their comments are, and if you all agree with it, they do have a recommendation of a direction to go in.
Can I just
Sure, Edwards, sure.
piggyback on that since, I think the big issue is that the front door is going to be the front door. I mean, the center is where it's going to be. It would have been helpful if the man had been at the ARB meeting and we could have just taken care of all this and moved along.
He was unfortunately in France with
Yeah.
a planned trip.
So, I mean, we could have rescheduled because there was nothing else on the agenda, whatever. I don't know. I just feel like the ARB should look at it again. Has he come back with has he brought the?
Well, what the idea was is that basically we take the recommendations of the ARB. The council still has to send whatever they decide upon to the ARB for a certificate of appropriateness before anything is constructed anyway. So you're going to get a final look at what is done. What we want to do is we want to take all the comments and suggestions, and Chairman Larson mentioned he felt that our town planner, Marshawn Schneider, seemed to have a very good grasp of what was being discussed. And also Councilwoman Edwards also serves on the committee, so hopefully we can convey that. But what we want to do is we're really looking at conceptual layout now. They've gone with a certain style, and the architects done 3 different renderings of that style, and there's variations of it. What I'd like to do is
Look at them.
bring it back to council so that we can keep the process moving forward without negating anything that the work that ARB has done on this, because I think they've done very valuable work.
What if, actually, Councilman Morris, did you have a comment?
If ARB hasn't given the thumbs up on it as yet.
They
asked-
agreed to it. One of the
Well, from what I'm gathering from Councilwoman is that they need to hash it out some more.
Can I just say, there were 3 plans that were presented to us, and they took elements from each plan and put them together. And just with what has happened with Harover and how we haven't been able to perceive what combining things and taking things away, do you understand what I'm saying? When the plans were out there to visualize what's not on a piece of paper, I feel like the actual, I don't have a problem with them seeing the plan. I mean, I have it here, they can look at it. But the position of the doors and the windows don't change out there. So if we want to talk about You see, understand what I'm saying? It's,
Right, I think there
There's
was
just
different
gonna be a
elements.
couple
They didn't give a version that the ARB agreed on. So they want to have them redo another version to now show this element up here and this thing over here. So I think
it doesn't change the physical aspects of the outside of the building.
So why would we wait, and why would we waste a month? Why wouldn't we just take it to council, let council decide on,
Well,
and we submit?
Well, I think that's what Brian was saying, that with Marchand, he could at least be able to explain what attributes that they're looking at on each of these, and then with the council's okay, let's go ahead and
Then we'd have John do it, and he's only
have him doing
this
it,
once.
he only has to do it
One more
once.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but having the council look at it since it's a recommendation. So my understanding, they're only recommending one, they'll only be recommending one version.
Correct.
Right, so.
That was
yeah,
my interpretation.
Right.
That could change next month. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the-
So either,
Yeah, that's where we're trying to go, is because what I'm fearful is what I'm fearful for the ARB for, and Councilwoman Edwards, I say this sincerely, is like, if we work at everything and get it, this is exactly right, and it comes up with one alternative, and you've got 5 other members of council who are like,
I don't like
that's
that.
not
Yeah,
kind of like
whatever,
what I like.
yeah.
And so we just spent a whole month
Exactly.
finding it to, getting it
Right.
to that. Whereas the ARB, what we want to do is we want to present all the findings that the ARB did to council so you all can have consideration, because I completely understand.
So you want to present them the 3 plans that we were shown.
So this is what the ARB typically liked, and this is what they would, changes that they would make and stuff. Do you all like those changes, or would you like to see that? Or I'd like to see that and alternative B, and then we're only working with John one more time, because what I fear is going to happen, or what I would advise you all is going to happen, is we come with one, you still get to see the other 2, and then they say, well, I like this one and this one, in which case now we've taken 3 months, because now council's going to go back to John and say, this is what we want, and then we come back and then finally. And at the end of the day, the only thing I'd add is that at the end of the day, no matter what the council decides, ultimately, that we have to go through the same process as everybody else. When it gets to the design phase, and he's actually doing the final designs on it, that would have to come to the ARB for a certificate of appropriateness at that time anyway.
I understand that. Are you going to show them all 3 plans, or are you going to come up with a plan, one plan, with the comments of the ARB? That's what I'm asking you.
The goal would basically be to show the 3 plans with what the ARB's recommendations were specifically.
So you take your 3 plans and you use a scissors and cut out, you want this
That's
thing
what we
over
need
there.
to do.
Well, I think that's what Marchand was going to explain.
Exactly.
Marchand was going to say, and I also asked Ken, and we'll actually also invite, make sure that members of ARB also know about the meeting if they can make it too. The point is to get the opinions and the recommendations of the ARB to the council, but not taking another month to drive it down.
And I
a little
understand that, but my point is it's not going to change anything else about the building. The inside, the function of the building, the door is going to be in the same place, the windows are going to be the same size. The things
You
that
guys
the
are saying the same thing
Yes, that the ARB is going to tweak are just little.
the whole time. You guys
Yeah.
are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, just one way, it goes back to the ARB, another
Right.
month goes by, and then comes to the council, whereas, it's almost like we need to have the council and the ARB together on a meeting, and that way, then you don't even have to go back through, the CA would be,
Right now, so.
oh, it's not, wow. Yeah.
But you guys are meeting,
On the 16th.
right, so if you get our comments next week, not next week,
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, next week.
you couldn't get our comments next week, Monday.
Yeah, that's the
Yes?
plan.
Yeah.
Can you
so-
send out the renderings to them, or get them the renderings?
And then just
So-
show the,
Yeah, and we do that on Monday, and then you would be able to prepare for the meeting on the 16th, especially if we have a few of the ARB members here.
Well, the meeting on the 16th, we basically, council's the one that's going to set Mr. Hetzel forward to go do work and finish up the design.
right.
I mean, so the goal is to incorporate and make sure the council understands all the ARB's comments and concerns, and I think I will reach out to Councilwoman Edwards and make sure we're on the same page with this regard, and I'll also reach out to the members of the ARB and explain. I think the biggest thing is we're just trying to keep the process moving.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, and ultimately, everything you just said about the building is true, and it's still going to come back to the ARB for a.
No, I
for a
understand
COA.
that, but
Okay,
You saw
all
me
right.
arguing with him.
No, I just.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if we want to move on,
Sure.
No, hold on. Let's address a point
Sure.
here, because it's not the rush. It's a man's time that has gone and drafted it. I think that it's not necessarily the rush.
No, and I completely understand that.
we're going to pay Mr. Hetzel every time he has to go back.
That's the issue. It's not about the rush. And the same thing with the Harover property. It's not the rush in getting rid of the building. It's that we've had this guy here, he did 11 drawings already. And the thing that he kept coming back to was what Councilmember Matt brought up. Let's decide on what we're doing with the houses. And what we're deciding and doing with the houses is what's holding up the design. So instead of paying this guy over and over and doing more renditions and more changes and move this window here, listen, just that we're saving money. It's not rush. We're saving money.
To me, it's circumventing the processes that we have set up in town to follow.
We're still, even as a council, we're still coming through ARB.
No, okay.
Don't we
I
still
agree
have to
with
go
this.
through ARB?
You do, but if a person walked in off the street to have a building built, you would not do it this way. You would make them follow the process.
Well, if that's because it's their money. This is the town's money.
Well, I think the person walking in off the street is you. I think that's the challenge. you're
Okay,
running
let's
into.
just move on. I'm not going to win this battle with this council, so just move on.
No?
Not
What
you.
do you mean you're not going to win this battle? This is not a friction. This is not something where this council versus you. It's someone coming off the street and wanting to build a building. It's their money that they're paying their architects, that their money that they're paying their developers and the people who are designing it. Here, it's different because it is the council who's making decision on the money for the town. We are making the decision how to spend the town's resources better. And what we're saying is that it's not about the rush. It's that we have invited this man in countless amount of time. He's doing renditions. When it comes to the Harover property, we've invited this man in. He's done all these different drawings. It is costing us money.
It does cost money.
And we're not circumventing the process. We're still going through the ARB.
And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, but the ARB did see they did have the envision. They went and had them come up with this vision that then came, this latest one, the three drawings. So in other words, it's been a process with ARB. So they had asked for it. He came up with these three,
So
and out of
perhaps
these
it should have
three,
been that before any drawings were done, that the ARB and the council should have done it together,
well,
so
no,
as not to
well, we haven't
cost
seen
more
anything.
money.
So,
I'm just saying.
well, no, I think if anything, the ARB maybe on the second go around should have already, if they had these concerns, the second set of drawings
We
should have
didn't
been there.
request anything from them, the staff did that.
Okay. Right.
We don't have that authority.
So anyway, so
Just give
we'll
our
at least,
recommendations.
we'll at least have the same drawings that the ARB's looked at and have now made their recommendations of the changes. So we'll be able to see these changes, or actually note the changes, and then decide collectively if these are the changes that we're looking to agree on or to tweak one more time. But
That's our responsibility as elected officials. The citizens voted us in to make decisions and spending the money properly, and that's what we're doing.
okay, well, I think we're on the same book.
Universe.
We're on the same book. Okay, so what else do you have, Mr. Henshaw?
Two more items. One of the things I want to bring your attention to is we're quickly approaching budget time. So in your packets that's on page 103, you will find this very simplistic. It's very simplistic form. What it is town council budget priorities. What I'd like each of you to do is don't worry about funding, don't worry about the cost of anything. I'd like you to go through, and I've provided just some list of potential budget priorities. You can also look at probably the best resources, your capital improvements plan, but also if there's things that you know is coming up. We know that the chief is going to need to look at body cameras. Put in your list of priorities. What we're going to be doing is we're going to go through an exercise, because what I want to do is I'm going to take these priorities from each of you all. We're going to assign real dollars to them, and then we're going to see where we're coming out. And then staff is also going to do this, although they get to do the homework if they got to assign their real dollars to what it costs. And so what this is our first step in taking that approach, going from a line item budget to a program-based budget. we've got to figure out what our programs are actually costing us, because where we can actually get to the point where now we're going to expect performance out of these programs. The goal really is to basically, when we come with this budget is going to look a little bit different. At the end of the day, behind the curtain, everything still looks almost like a line item, but what we're going to do is we're going to describe it. We're going to say what all of our programs are going towards, which all of the line items are going to, and this is how residents are funding these services. And through this time, we hopefully assign, there's real dollars that go towards providing trash service. There's real dollars that go towards making sure that we have a police department and they're equipped with the right safety equipment. So this is just the first step. We're just starting this process. I'm hoping in January we'll come back, and what I'll do is we'll basically kind of give you a report of where we're at, what the budget priorities look like versus along with the staffs, and then we'll kind of look at the realistic things, and then we'll use that as to say, okay, this will kind of go into what the forecasting is for next year.
Okay, so you would like to have these back by next Monday, then,
Next
obviously?
Monday, if at all possible.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Second thing is, this is just more homework for you all to do, is that this has been mentioned, this came out of your strategic action plan. It's the draft Haymarket Citizen Satisfaction Survey. This is actually a survey instrument I've used in my prior career with doing comp plan updates for other localities in Virginia. Matter of fact, I already found one, and so I missed one, so I do apologize. But we use the same survey instrument in the town of Lee Ray, Virginia. When we're doing their update when I worked for the regional commission in the Shenandoah Valley. This is not how our survey has to end up looking like.
Yeah, it looks kind of choppy to me. I don't know.
Well, you try to keep the one page. That's the biggest thing. You're trying to look at various different aspects. But what I want you all to do is, before we even start down, look through it, edit it, mark on it, redline it, do whatever you like to do. If there's questions that you're not seeing that you're like, I really want to know the answer to this.
Like meals tax. That would be a resident question.
Prime example: does the meals tax affect you? So I don't even know you have it. I mean, you can give the options. We're also going to, whatever we come up with, we will also put this into a survey instrument that we will post online and make it so you can actually do point click and such. But hard copy will go out to residents as well. And it's one of those things, we're not really in so much of a rush. I'd like to get this done so we can report it back to you all sometime after the new year. But really, in the grand scheme of things, I would rather not just send this out separate mail. I'd rather send it out with whenever our first quarter newsletter goes out or something to that effect. So this is a work in progress, but if you could provide me any comments or suggestions or if you get questions, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Well done.
That's all I have, unless you have anything else on that.
All right.
That was quick.
All right.
Yes, I do. I have one more thing.
Oh, sure. Good.
Can you put on your report a tracking of the quiet zone? Because you and I haven't had a chance to really talk about where we're at. And I don't know if you've talked to Pete, Diana, about that whole mechanism.
One other thought, too, is when we were first coming in, we need to meet, what do we call it, public facilities, possibly this Thursday at 5 o'clock. And if many council members could be here for Thursday at 5, we're going to be discussing the logistics of the inside the master plan, the availability of putting in the police department and where we stand with that, the police department current building, of how we can stage and bring people over, and so Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Is there any chance we could put a time limit
Oh,
on
yeah.
it? So my wife will let me come.
Right. How much time do we have? What do you need to update us as far as 20 minutes?
I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll try to have everything to you beforehand.
Okay.
You can look at it through
Right.
email, and then what I'm going to do is put together just really kind of our options. I might not have all the details that we need to know, but at least give us a discussion. I'd say 7, not even.
So let's say at hour max. That'll be our commitment. Okay. Oh, great. All right.
5:30?
5 o'clock. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thursday, not Wednesday.
Thursday, yeah.